"You never came home from deployment," Ben said. He said it with one hand resting on the sale agreement and the other around my father's coffee mug. Not a mug like my father's. His actual mug, the ugly brown one with "World's Okayest Boss" printed across it in crooked yellow letters. My mother stared at her plate. Mason stopped chewing. For one strange second, I heard the brakes of the 6:10 bus sighing at the Bellwether station. I felt the weight of my duffel cutting into my shoulder and the soft give of my parents' porch beneath my boots. I saw a dark house, a dead porch light, and the kitchen window reflecting me back at myself. Ben's thumb rubbed the chip along the mug's rim. "That's what you told them?" I asked. His face changed, but only around the mouth. "That's what happened." I walked outside without my coat. The green document pouch was behind the passenger seat of my truck, under a folded moving blanket and a socket set I kept meaning to return. I brought it inside, opened the zipper, and took out the 24th envelope. My handwriting was faded. The seal had never been broken. Return to sender was stamped across my name in red. Underneath it, in blue ink, Ben had written, "Refused." The day before Ben told me I had never come home, I drove into Bellwether with 2 duffel bags, a plastic bin of work clothes, and every intention of leaving again by Sunday. The town had acquired a roundabout since I'd last been there. Bellwether had never needed a roundabout. It had 1 traffic light, 1 courthouse, and a volunteer beautification committee that treated petunias like a municipal emergency. But there it was, circling a statue of some 19th century judge nobody remembered, forcing 3 pickup trucks and me to negotiate international diplomacy at 11 miles an hour. I went around twice. The second time was because I missed my turn. The first was between me and God. Hale Recovery sat behind my mother's house at the end of Old Quarry Road, exactly where it had always been. The sign had been repainted, but the name was still my father's block lettering, Hale Recovery Repair. Somebody had added a digital number beneath it for after-hours towing, which seemed obscene. My father had believed emergencies should reach a human being, preferably while that human being was eating soup. 2 tow trucks occupied the gravel lot. The older one was red, with rust feathering around the wheel wells. The newer one was white and had Mercer painted in small black letters on the driver's door beneath the Hale logo. I parked beside my mother's hydrangeas and sat with the engine running. I had spent the drive from Roanoke telling myself the house was a structure: wood, brick, wiring, plumbing. The garage was a commercial building with 4 service bays and a roof that had needed replacement since the first Bush administration. The people inside those buildings were adults. I was an adult. My hands didn't care. I turned off the engine. The porch light was on in the middle of the afternoon. My mother opened the front door before I reached the steps. June Hale had always been a small woman who occupied space like a larger one. At 70, she had gone silver without going soft. She wore a blue cardigan buttoned wrong and held a wooden spoon like she had been interrupted while disciplining a pot. "You cut your hair," she said, "last year. It's short. That's generally how cutting works." Her lips twitched. It wasn't a smile, but we were related to it. She looked past me toward my truck. "Is that everything?" "For 2 days. I made up your room. I got a room at the Bellwether Motor Court." That killed whatever almost smile we'd managed. The motor court has bed bugs. It had bed bugs in 1998. Bed bugs are patient. I'll take my chances. She stepped back to let me inside. I bent to hug her and she turned at the same time, so I caught one shoulder and half the wooden spoon. We stayed tangled for a second too long. "You're bony," she said. "You're armed. It's gravy. That's how it starts." This time she did smile. Then she looked embarrassed and went ahead of me into the kitchen. The house smelled like onions, furniture polish, and the cinnamon gum my father used to chew when he was trying to quit smoking. He had been dead 14 months. Smell did not respect chronology. A stack of documents waited on the kitchen table beside a glass bowl full of waxy apples. Blue paper tabs stuck out from the side. "Sign here. Initial. Review." My mother put the spoon down. Coffee? If it's fresh, it's from this morning. What time this morning? She glanced at the microwave clock. Morning. I'll make another pot. You always did need everything a certain way. The words were light. The landing wasn't. I opened the cabinet and found the filters where they had always been. The coffee itself had moved to a ceramic canister labeled flour because my mother had never met a label she trusted. Her hand stayed busy at the stove while mine measured grounds. You could have stayed here, she said. I know, it's still your home. I concentrated on filling the reservoir without spilling. Is it? The gravy made a wet popping sound behind her. My mother turned the burner down. I'm not fighting with you the first 10 minutes. That makes 2 of us. You've been here 6. Then we're doing well. She pressed her mouth flat, but some of the old rhythm had survived. That was the dangerous part. It would have been easier if she'd been cruel. Cruelty gave you something solid to brace against. My mother could remember exactly how I liked my toast and still believe I had abandoned everyone who mattered. She touched the stack of papers. Mason will go through these at supper. Ben, too. I already had a lawyer review the draft. Her eyebrows rose. You didn't tell me that. You emailed me a business sale agreement. I assumed you wanted me to understand it. I wanted you to sign it. That's not the same thing. The coffee maker began to gurgle between us. She folded a dish towel into a smaller rectangle, then folded it again. Your father wanted the garage kept local. He also wanted a buffalo ranch when he was 58. That was after the anesthesia. He bought 3 books. He bought books about submarines, too. We were closer to buffalo. She gave up and laughed once through her nose. I watched her refold the towel. I'm not trying to stop the sale, I said. Then what is the problem? I haven't seen an inventory. The equipment list says, all shop contents. Dad's personal tools are mixed in with business property. So are mine. Your tools? The snap-on chest in the back bay. Gray, dent over the right wheel. There should be an engine analyzer, torque wrenches, pullers, half my hand tools. Those have been there 9 years. Yes, they've been used. I assumed so. Ben kept everything running. There he was, not in the room, but seated comfortably between us. I'm not accusing anybody of stealing a wrench, Mom. I didn't say you were. You said his name like a warning. I said it like a fact. The fresh coffee dripped into the pot. I poured too early and the machine hissed when I slid the pot back. My mother watched me wipe the spill. He did a lot for your father. I know. And for me, I know that too. Mason couldn't have handled the garage alone. I'm not asking Mason to. Then I don't know why you sound angry. I set the paper towel beside the sink. I don't sound angry. You sound like your voicemail message. My voicemail message is efficient. It frightens people. It says to leave a name and number. It's the way you say number. I took my coffee to the table and sat opposite the sale documents. The buyer's name appeared on the top page in clean black type. Benjamin R. Mercer. I had known before I drove up. My mother had told me over the phone, in the careful voice she used for tornado warnings and family betrayals. Still, seeing his full name made my shoulders tighten. Benjamin R. Mercer had signed the preliminary offer with the same slanted B he used to put on birthday cards, oil change stickers, and the notes he once tucked into my lunch. The R stood for Robert, though he hated Robert and refused to explain why. I had known him since I was 19. I had slept beside him for 7 years. I knew he sneezed twice in bright sunlight and lied when he was ashamed. At least I used to know. My mother sat across from me. You don't have to see him alone. I'm not afraid of Ben. I didn't say afraid. A socket wrench clattered in the garage behind the house. The noise came through the kitchen wall as clearly as it had when I was a teenager. Is he here now? I asked. No. Mason is. I stood. My mother looked at my untouched coffee. You just made that. I'll be back. Carrie. I stopped at the door. Her eyes moved over my face, collecting details she didn't know how to ask for. I'm glad you came. It would have cost me nothing to say I was glad too. I said I would. The yard between the house and the garage was only 30 paces, but it used to contain an entire life. Dad's dented charcoal grill, Mason throwing acorns at my bedroom window, Ben kissing me beside the rain barrel because my father was pretending not to watch from Bay 2, the side door stuck in damp weather. I put my shoulder into it out of habit and it flew open so easily I nearly stumbled. Someone had fixed it. The garage hit me all at once. Oil, hot rubber, brake cleaner, old coffee. A radio played classic rock from a shelf above the parts washer. My father's calendar still hung beside the office door, turned to the month he died. Mason was under the red recovery truck, boots sticking out near the rear tire. I tapped one sole with mine. If you're dead, I'm taking the good torque wrench. The creeper rolled out. My brother had our father's broad face and our mother's suspicious eyes. Gray had begun invading his beard in uneven patches. Well, he said, the Army releases its hostage. I looked down at him. Municipal fleet mechanic, same haircut, less shooting, better pension, worse coffee. He sat up and wiped his hands on a rag. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then he stood and hugged me hard enough to knock my chin against his shoulder. You're late, he muttered. By 6 minutes, by 9 years. There it was, wrapped in a joke because Hales believed Payne should wear a fake mustache in public. I stepped back. Mom said you'd show me the inventory. She said you'd sign. She remains optimistic. Mason rolled his eyes toward the ceiling. Please don't turn this into one of your operations. I don't have operations anymore. You made an agenda for Dad's cookout. He served ribs 2 hours late. They were excellent ribs. At 9:15 at night. He tossed the rag onto a workbench. Your toolbox is where you left it. Past the lift, beyond 2 rolling carts and a tower of snow tires, stood the gray chest. The dent over the right wheel was deeper than I remembered. A newer padlock hung through the latch. I touched it. This isn't my lock. Ben put it on. Why? Stuff walks. Who has the key? Mason scratched behind one ear. The bay door rattled upward before he could answer. Afternoon light spread across the concrete, followed by the white tow truck with Mercer painted on the door. Ben pulled into the garage and killed the engine. He had more gray at his temples and my father's brown mug in his cup holder. When he saw me, he went completely still. Then he smiled as if we had merely arrived at the same restaurant. Welcome home, Care, he said. I hadn't heard anyone call me Care since the divorce. Mason looked from Ben to me, then found the underside of the recovery truck suddenly fascinating. Caroline is fine, I said. Ben's smile held half a second past its natural life. Caroline, then. He climbed down from the cab. He wore the same dark green work shirts my father used to order in bulk, though the stitch name over the pocket said Ben instead of Frank. He had filled out through the shoulders. There was a pale line on his left ring finger, maybe from work gloves, maybe not. I refused to be curious. His eyes moved to my hand on the toolbox. You need in there. It's mine. I know whose it is. Good. We've narrowed the problem. Mason sighed from somewhere behind me. We're doing this already? Ben reached for the carabiner clipped to his belt. There were at least 20 keys on it, more than any honest man needed. He sorted through them without looking at me. We had things go missing, he said, a couple years back. So Mason told me. A compressor fitting, 2 impact batteries, then a scan tool. We started locking personal storage. We? The people who work here. The third key opened my padlock. I looked at him. Ben slipped the keys back onto his belt. I can get you a copy. I'm taking the lock off. Also an option. The lid resisted at first. The gasket stuck after years of being closed. When it finally lifted, the smell of machine oil rose out of the drawers. My tools were arranged by size. I had never arranged anything by size in my life. Function, frequency, and how badly I would swear if I couldn't find it, that was a system. Whoever had organized the chest had put the combination wrenches in foam cutouts and lined the sockets in neat black rails. A folded shop towel covered the top drawer. I picked it up. Underneath lay my father's old tire gauge, 3 grease pencils, and a red-handled screwdriver with CH scratched into the plastic. "You kept them clean," I said. Ben leaned one hip against the workbench. "Tools last if you take care of them. People too, sometimes." Mason dropped a wrench. It hit the concrete with a gunshot crack. "All right," he said. "I'm going to pretend that was subtle and ask if either of you wants coffee." "No," Ben and I said together. Mason pointed at us. "See? Healing." He walked toward the office, muttering something about being surrounded by lunatics. I opened the second drawer. My torque wrenches were there, along with 2 that had belonged to Dad. One still had a strip of masking tape around the handle with Frank Hale written on it in my mother's handwriting. "The inventory lists this chest under shop contents," I said, "because it's in the shop. My truck is in the parking lot. Is that included too? That would improve the offer. You couldn't afford it." The corner of his mouth moved. Ben always smiled when he was irritated. I used to think that meant he was easygoing. It took marriage to understand it meant his anger preferred camouflage. The appraiser counted the large equipment, he said. Lifts, compressors, welders. Nobody priced every screwdriver. I asked for an itemized list. "You asked your mother for one yesterday. I asked 2 weeks ago. Then she forgot. Did she?" His smile disappeared. A phone rang in the office. Mason shouted, "Neither of you answer that," before picking it up himself. Ben folded his arms. "What are you trying to do here? Separate personal property from shop property. Your father used those tools. I use them. Mason used them. That doesn't change who owns them. You left them." The word landed between us with more weight than it deserved. I closed the drawer carefully. I stored them in my father's garage for 9 years. Yes, without one phone call asking after them. I'm asking now. He looked away first toward the open bay. Outside, wind pushed dry leaves across the gravel in little nervous circles. "You still do that," he said. "What?" "Talk like every sentence is being entered into evidence." "I repair garbage trucks, Ben. There's less intrigue than you'd think. You know what I mean." Unfortunately. Mason came back holding the cordless phone against his chest. "Box truck lost a wheel on County 9. Not a tire. The wheel." Driver sounds like he's about to become religious. Ben straightened. "Loaded? Restaurant equipment? Call Ellis for traffic control. I'll take the white truck. The boom's still stuttering. It's fine once it warms up." "It's not fine," I said. Both men looked at me. I pointed through the windshield of the white truck. "You've got hydraulic fluid on the passenger step." Ben glanced down. A dark amber smear ran beneath the cab. "That's from yesterday," he said. "Then yesterday also had a leak. It's a seep. That's what leaks call themselves when they want to be invited places." Mason snorted. Ben crouched beside the step, ran 2 fingers along the line, and examined them. "Return coupling." "Probably. You diagnosed that from 10 feet away? It's where Dad's old unit always rubbed." "This isn't your dad's old unit. The mounting bracket is." Ben looked underneath. I watched him find the spot where the hose had worn against the edge of the bracket. His jaw tightened. Mason held the phone out. "I can tell the man with the 3-wheeled truck that will be there sometime before his conversion." Ben stood. "The red truck can handle it. The winch has been dragging." I adjusted it. "Did you fix it or talk to it?" I asked. Ben took a breath through his nose. "You want to inspect that too?" I walked around the red recovery truck and knelt beside the winch housing. The cable had bunched hard to one side of the drum. Dad used to call it bird nesting, though no bird deserved the comparison. "You've got too much side load," I said. "Fair lead's shifted. I know what it is." "Then why ask me to inspect it?" I didn't. Mason handed me a pair of gloves from his back pocket. "Please fix our business so I can continue resenting your attitude." I put them on. "Get me a 3/4. Ben reached behind him without looking and tossed the wrench. I caught it. It was an old thing between us. In the years before deployments and returned mail and lawyers, we had spent Saturday mornings working in that garage. Ben would call a size, I would throw it. I would reach out and he would somehow know what belonged in my hand. We had been good at work. Marriage had not destroyed every language we shared. For the next 20 minutes, none of us discussed the sale. Mason loosened the fairlead mount while I guided the cable back across the drum. Ben replaced the damaged hydraulic section on the white truck because despite his argument, he knew better than to take a compromise line onto County 9. The radio shifted from Fleetwood Mac to commercials for gutter guards. My father's ceiling fan clicked on every rotation. Ben passed behind me and touched 2 fingers to my shoulder so I wouldn't back into him. "Hot line," he said. My body understood his touch before my mind rejected it. I stepped aside too quickly and struck my knee on the bumper. "You okay?" "Fine." That sounded expensive. "Only to your insurance." Mason crawled out from under the boom. "I forgot how peaceful you two were together." "We were never peaceful," Ben said. I tightened the mount. "You complained less than. I was younger. You had fewer opinions. I had exactly the same number. You were overseas half the time." The wrench stopped in my hand. Ben's face shifted. He had heard it too late. Mason stood, wiping his palms on his jeans. "Truck's waiting." "I know." Ben picked up his gloves. "I didn't mean it like that." "You rarely did," I said. He stared at me for a moment, then climbed into the white truck. Mason opened the bay all the way. Ben backed out, careful around my pickup, even though he had acres of room. When he shifted into drive, his eyes found mine through the windshield. I looked down at the winch. The tow truck rolled across the gravel and turned onto Old Quarry Road. Mason let the bay door descend until it stopped at shoulder height. That went better than I expected. "Which part?" "No blood. The day is young." He leaned against the truck. "You really taking the tools?" "Some of them." "Which ones?" "Mine." That answer sounds simple because you enjoy being difficult. Dad's are yours and mine. The shops are part of the sale. Mine belong to me. Ben's used that analyzer every week since Dad got sick. Then he should make me an offer. He's making an offer for the entire garage, not my personal property. Mason scratched his beard. "You don't even work on diesels anymore. I work on everything the city of Roanoke buys and then regrets. You know what I mean." I took off the borrowed gloves and laid them on the bumper. "No, I don't. Explain why leaving my tools here made them his." "Not his. The garage's. Buildings don't own socket sets." "Jesus, Carrie." The office phone rang again. Mason led it. He looked tired. I hadn't noticed before. There were purple half moons beneath his eyes and the lines around his mouth had deepened since Dad's funeral. "I need this sale to happen," he said. My answer softened before I could stop it. "Why?" "Because Mom wants out. Because I can't keep doing payroll, dispatch, repairs, and roadside calls. Because Ben already does half of it and buying in means he takes more of the risk. Then write down what he's buying." "We did. You wrote all shop contents." That's what the attorney put. "Attorneys have never opened this toolbox." He stared past me at the gray chest. "You weren't here when we went through Dad's things. No, you weren't here when the roof leaked over Bay 3, or when Mom got pneumonia, or when the county canceled the winter contract. Ben was. I know. Do you?" "I know he stayed." Mason's face hardened. Somebody had to. The words should have made me angry. Instead, they made me tired in a place sleep didn't reach. I locked the toolbox using Ben's padlock, which felt like losing an argument with myself. "Give me until tomorrow," I said. "I'll mark what's mine and make a separate list of Dad's personal tools. I won't hold up the sale over equipment we can identify." Mason studied me, suspicious of concessions. "You mean that?" "Yes." "Could you say it into my phone? Don't push." He nodded. "Supper at 6. I'll be there." Mom made pot roast. She said the spoon was for gravy. It is if you respect yourself. I started toward the side door. "Carrie." I turned. Mason was rubbing the grease from his wedding band finger, though he hadn't worn a wedding band in years. "Ben didn't ask us to pick him. I didn't say he did. You left. He helped. It wasn't some plan." I looked toward the road where the tow truck had disappeared. Then nobody should be nervous about me asking questions. My room at the motor court smelled like bleach over damp carpet. I showered, changed my shirt, and sat on the edge of the bed with the sale agreement open beside me. At 5:40, my mother texted, "Ben is eating with us. Be civil." At 5:41, another message appeared. "Please." I typed 3 different answers and deleted all of them. When I returned to the house, the porch light was on again. Ben's truck was parked in my father's usual spot. Through the kitchen window, I saw him carrying the pot roast to the table, while my mother followed with the gravy. Mason opened a beer. Ben said something that made them both laugh. For a few seconds, no one noticed me standing outside. I could have knocked. Instead, I tried the knob. The door opened. My mother had kept it unlocked for me. "Standing out there won't improve the food," Mason said without looking up from his beer. Ben set the roasting pan on a folded towel. "She's checking our perimeter." I was wiping my shoes. "On air?" I closed the door behind me. "You should try it. Doesn't stain." Mom handed me a stack of plates before I had my coat off. "Put these down and sit. The carrots are getting soft." "The carrots started soft," Mason said. "They're cooked. They've surrendered." Ben moved my father's mug off the table to make room for the gravy boat. Frank liked them that way. "Dad liked salt," Mason said. "Food was the delivery system." They laughed again, softer because I was in the room. I carried the plates to the table. 4 places had been set. Mom sat at the end nearest the stove, the chair she had always used. Mason took the side facing the window. Ben stood behind my father's chair. Then he noticed me noticing. "You want this seat?" he asked. "No." "You used to sit there when Frank wasn't home." So did the mail. Mason opened his mouth, thought better of it, and drank his beer. Ben pulled out the chair across from Mason. I sat. He took my father's place but didn't look comfortable doing it anymore. Mom passed the pot roast. Ben brought this. "From Dorsey's," he said. "June cooked it. I put it in the oven." "That's cooking. That's warming. You added onions. They were in the bag." Mason pointed his fork at me. "This is the argument they have every Thursday." "Thursday's meatloaf," Mom said. "Tuesday, then." "Tuesday is soup." Ben cut a slice from the roast and placed it on my mother's plate before serving himself. He trimmed off the ribbon of fat without asking. Mom had always hated the texture and refused to admit it. The movement was practiced. I had spent 9 years thinking of Ben as a door closing, a changed lock, a manila envelope from a divorce attorney. It was inconvenient to discover he had continued existing in smaller ways, knowing which piece of meat my mother would eat and where she kept the good pot holders. He passed me the carrots. "No thanks. You still hate cooked carrots?" "I don't hate them. I object to what's been done to them." "They were consenting adults," Mason said. Mom smacked the back of his hand with her spoon. The first several minutes were almost normal. That made me more nervous than open hostility would have. Mason complained about the county dispatch system. Mom described a neighbor's new mailbox in terms usually reserved for moral collapse. Ben asked about the drive from Roanoke. 5.5 hours, I said. "You take 35? "Mostly. Construction around Charleston?" "Some." "You should go east on the way back. I'll alert my navigator." He looked at the empty place beside my plate where a phone might have been. "You still print directions?" "I own a map." Mason put down his fork. "Of course you own a map. Maps continue working when cell service doesn't. So do compasses. Did you bring one of those?" "In the truck." Mom looked up. "Do you really have a compass in your truck?" "2." Mason closed his eyes. "I'm so happy you're home." The word home traveled around the table and sat down with us. Mom reached for the gravy. Her sleeve dipped dangerously close to it, and Ben caught the cuff between 2 fingers before it touched. "You buttoned that wrong," he told her. "I know how I buttoned it. You missed one. It's artistic. Hold still." He shifted the buttons without making a production of it. Mom continued eating as though adult men routinely rebuttoned her cardigans at supper. My father had done that, not the cardigan. Small repairs to a person, untwisting a necklace, tightening the screw in Mom's glasses, pulling a loose thread from her shoulder. Ben had watched him all those years. I took a drink of water. "So, Mom said when Ben finished. "The papers." "Can we eat first?" Mason asked. "You said we'd discuss them at supper. I thought that meant after dessert." "There's no dessert. Then after the food we're pretending is dessert." Ben folded his napkin beside his plate. "We can go through Carrie's questions. I have one request," I said. "A complete equipment inventory that distinguishes business property from personal tools." Mom frowned. "You're still on that?" "I've been on it since noon. That's not very long. I told you I'd help with the list tomorrow," Mason said. Ben nodded. "That's fine." I looked at him. "What?" he asked. I expected an argument. "I'm not arguing over hand tools. You argued this afternoon." I was surprised. By the concept of ownership? By you showing up after 9 years and announcing what's yours? Mason set his fork down. And there it is. Ben lifted both hands slightly. I said the list is fine. His voice was calm. Mine was calm. My mother hated calm arguments because she could never tell when to intervene. "The chest is mine," I said. "Some of Dad's things ended up in it. We'll separate those. And the analyzer, mine. The shop uses it. The shop can buy it from me, or I can deduct a fair amount from my portion of the sale price." Ben glanced at Mason. "It's an old unit. Then replacement should be cheap. It's not about the money." "Good. We agree." Mom pressed 2 fingers to the center of her forehead. "Please don't make this difficult. I'm asking for a list. It's never just a list with you." I waited. She moved her hand from her forehead to her water glass. "You make people account for every word. Words account for themselves." "No, they don't," Ben said. "People decide what they mean. And sometimes they decide later." His chair creaked as he leaned back. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means we should put the equipment terms in writing so nobody has to remember a different version." The roast cooled on my plate. Mason pushed his chair away an inch. "There is no different version. Ben buys the business assets. Mom sells the property. I stay on and put part of my share back into the operating account. You take your share and go back to Virginia." My mother flinched. Mason saw it. "That came out wrong." "No," I said. "It came out clean. I mean, that's what you want. You haven't asked what I want. You told Mom you'd be here 2 days. I have a job. We all have jobs. Apparently mine only counts when I'm physically standing in front of you." Ben's fork clicked against his plate. "Don't do that." "Do what?" "Turn every practical question into an accusation about your service." "I didn't mention my service. You didn't have to." Mom looked between us. "Let's stop." Ben ignored her. "Mason's asking because we need a closing date. The bank needs a closing date. Your mother needs a closing date. You can't drift in, inspect everybody's choices, then act insulted when we want to know how long you plan to stay." I studied his face. "Drift in. You know what I mean. I drove 5.5 hours after you sent me a contract that included my property. We sent you the contract. You wrote it. A lawyer wrote it. You emailed it from your account. Because your mother asked me to handle the paperwork." "Of course she did." Mom put her palm flat on the table. "Caroline, I'm not criticizing you. You are, and I've had enough." "Enough of what?" "This tone. This interrogation. You came in here prepared to find something wrong." I looked at the sale agreement beside the apples. Ben had placed it there before I arrived, with a pen on top. "You asked me to sign away my share of Dad's garage," I said. "Was I supposed to close my eyes?" "You never wanted the garage," she said. "That isn't the point. You left it." Ben said it quietly. I turned to him. "I stored my things here. You left everything here. I had orders. You always had orders." Mason rubbed both hands over his face. Ben. But Ben had passed the place where other people could stop him. "You don't get to walk back into this house and pretend time waited for you," he said. "Your dad got sick. Your mother needed help. The garage nearly folded twice. I know. You know because we told you. Knowing isn't the same as being here. I came back. When?" The question was so sharp that for a second no one moved. "I came back from Afghanistan," I said. Ben shook his head. "You never came home from deployment." The room became very small. My mother stared at her plate. Mason stopped chewing the inside of his cheek. "That's what you told them?" I asked. Ben's thumb found the chip on my father's mug. That's what happened. I pushed my chair back. Mom said my name, but I was already outside. The cold air caught at the damp hair along my neck. I crossed the yard, opened my truck, and took the green document pouch from behind the passenger seat. I had not brought it to supper. I had not planned to bring it into the house at all. When I returned, nobody had moved except Ben. He was standing now. I set the pouch beside the gravy boat. "What is that?" Mom asked. I unzipped it. The envelopes had curled slightly at the corners. Afghanistan dust had worked its way into the canvas seams of the pouch, fine as flour. I found number 24 by the small pencil mark I had put on the back years ago. Ben saw his own name on the front. He went pale. I laid the envelope on top of the sale agreement, returned to sender, crossed the address in red. His handwritten refused sat beneath it in blue. Mason leaned closer. "Is that your writing?" Ben didn't answer. "This one came back to me 3 weeks before I left Afghanistan," I said. "I mailed it after my return date was confirmed." Mom looked at Ben. "You said she hadn't written. She hadn't called." "I couldn't call from that post. You found ways before. Not then." He picked up the envelope, but only by one corner, as if it might be hot. By that point, I knew what a letter from you would say. "No," I said. "You didn't." His eyes lifted to mine. "You never opened it." The refrigerator motor clicked off. In the silence, I could hear the kitchen clock above the sink losing a second at a time. Ben put the envelope down. Mason turned it over, checking the unbroken seal. "Why did you refuse it? It wasn't like that. What was it like?" Ben looked toward my mother, but she didn't help him. I took the envelope back. My thumbnail rested beneath the flap. I had carried those words across 3 states and 9 years without exposing them. Opening it in front of Ben felt obscene. Leaving it sealed felt worse. I tore the paper. The sound made my mother jump. Inside was one sheet folded twice. My handwriting slanted downhill because I had written on my knee. I read only the first lines. Ben. "My bus gets into Bellwether Friday at 6:10. They're giving us 2 days at Campbell before release, so unless something changes, I'll be home August 22nd. I stopped. Mom's chair scraped the floor. August 22nd. Ben closed his eyes. She looked at him. "You told us," she extended. The anger left his face so quickly that what remained was almost fear. I reached into the pouch again and removed a second unopened envelope. This one was addressed to June and Frank Hale. My mother did not reach for it. Her name looked young in my handwriting. June Hale, the J looped too wide, the letters pressed hard enough to leave grooves in the paper. Beneath my parents' names, I had written their home address on Old Quarry Road. Ben looked at the envelope and then at me. "I didn't see all of those. You wrote on the front." I didn't know who they were for. The names were a clue. I was picking up their mail. Your dad was in Columbus. You were asked to bring the mail inside, not screen it. I thought you were going around me. Mom's head lifted. Going around you to do what? Get you involved. I was already involved. She's my daughter, and I was her husband. The words came out louder than anything else he had said. My father's mug rocked when Ben struck the table with the side of his hand. He caught it before it tipped, fingers closing around it with an automatic care that made me hate him for a fresh reason. Mason stood. "You don't get to return my mail because your marriage is bad. I said I didn't know there were letters for you." I took out 3 more envelopes. One bore Mason's name. 2 were for my parents. All 3 had been returned unopened. Ben stared at them. "How many are there?" 27. Mom made a small sound. 27 letters? Mason asked. "Over 14 weeks. To him? Some." Mason looked at the pouch. "How many to us? I don't remember. You numbered them. When they came back. I didn't make a catalog." Ben pushed his chair away and stood. "I need some air. You're not leaving," Mom said. He stopped. She had not raised her voice. She used the same tone she once used when Dad tried to drive himself to the emergency room with 3 fingers wrapped in a dish towel. My mother could make staying in a room sound like a condition of the universe. Ben kept one hand on the back of his chair. June, this is between Carrie and me. You wrote refused on a letter with my name on it. I was angry. At me? No. Then why didn't I get my letter? He looked at me. Not for rescue. Ben knew me better than that. He was trying to decide which version of the truth I had brought with me. It was a bad time, he said. Mason laughed once, without humor. Excellent. Cleared up. Frank was in the hospital. The garage was underwater. I was sleeping 4 hours a night, and every time I heard from Carrie, it was another explanation for why she couldn't call or why she couldn't give me a date. I gave you a date, I said, in a letter you sent after I'd already told you I was done. No. You stopped answering. I told you on the phone. You said, if the army is your marriage, maybe I should get out of the way. Then the line dropped. That was clear. It was dramatic. His eyes flashed. You laughed. I thought you were being dramatic. My wife laughed while I was trying to tell her our marriage was over. My husband tried to end a marriage in the last 30 seconds of a satellite call. Mom looked at me. You never told me that. I tried to tell you a lot of things. Her fingers curled against the table. Ben pulled his jacket from the back of his chair. I'm not standing here while she rewrites every conversation we had. You returned the letters, Mason said. That part seems pretty well written. Ben shoved one arm into his jacket. She makes it sound like I woke up one morning and decided to erase her. You weren't there, Mason. You didn't hear the way she talked to me. I was busy being shot at, I said. That. Any problem I had was smaller because you were in danger. I couldn't be angry. I couldn't be lonely. I couldn't ask you for anything without becoming the selfish husband who didn't support the soldier. You could be angry. I was. You couldn't be cruel. Ben's hand stopped at the zipper. The sentence did more than shouting would have. I watched it reach him. He didn't deny it. Mom touched the envelope addressed to her and Dad with one fingertip. What did you tell us? Ben turned toward her. About what? August 22nd. His face went blank in the way faces do when every available answer is bad. You said Caroline extended, Mom continued. You said she had an opportunity to stay and took it. She told me she was considering re-enlisting. That was months before. I thought that was what happened. You didn't think, I said. You needed it to be what happened. He looked at me. Did you come here to sign papers? Or did you come here to do this? I didn't put the pouch on the table until you told me I never came home. You could have shown these years ago. I did. Mom's chair creaked beneath her. No. I turned to her. No, you did not. Her voice trembled now. I would remember. I brought the pouch into this kitchen. When? The morning after I got back. Ben stared at me. You came to the house? You changed the lock on the apartment. I moved out with my belongings. I boxed everything and brought it here. I didn't know where else to put it. You knew my return date was in August. I told you before our last call. You didn't give me a day, so you decided any day would be safe. He opened his mouth and closed it. Mom was still watching me. What morning? August 23rd. We were in Columbus. I found that out later. Your father had an appointment. I didn't know. Nobody answered the house phone, and the spare key was gone. Ben looked toward the back door. You moved it, I said. Frank asked me to. The Lockwoods place had been broken into, so I sat on the porch. My mother's face changed slowly. All night, most of it. Why didn't you go to Mason's? I didn't know if he'd moved. I lived 6 blocks away, Mason said. It had been 14 months. You could have called. My phone didn't work stateside. I had change for a payphone, but I didn't have your number. You knew the garage number. The garage went to voicemail. Mason looked down. Dad's appointment. I drove them. I nodded. What did you do? Mom asked. Waited for daylight. There were other details. A neighbor's sprinkler clicking on at 4:30, the blister at the back of my left heel breaking open, a porch cushion that smelled like rain. I had placed my duffel beneath my head and slept for 11 minutes before a truck backfired on Quarry Road and put me on my feet. I did not give them those details. They had not earned all of them in one evening. At 7, I said, I walked to the garage. Mrs. Dorsey saw me and let me use her phone. Mason didn't answer. I called Ben. I was at my brother's, Ben said. You answered. I mean, I'd been sleeping there. You told me my boxes were in Bay 4 and the marriage was over. His eyes moved to Mason. I came to the garage. After 9. I came. And Mom and Dad got back around noon. My mother's hand went to her throat. You were filthy, she said. The memory had found her. Yes. You wouldn't sit down. I'd been sitting. You kept saying you had written. I had the pouch in my hand. Mom looked at the green canvas as if it had been present at a death. I told you not to use the war as an excuse, she said. Nobody moved. She said it again, quieter. I told you not to bring the war into my house. You were upset. That doesn't make it better. No. You left that same day. Sunday morning. You stayed 2 nights at the motor court. Her eyes closed. Bedbugs. Mason made a sound that might have been a laugh if there had been room for one. There wasn't. Ben picked up his keys from the counter. Mom opened her eyes. Where are you going? Home. This is your home when it suits you. He flinched. She looked surprised by her own accuracy. June, he said. I am sorry those letters never reached you. That is a sentence people use when the post office loses something. I returned them. I know that. I shouldn't have. Why? I told you. No, you told me you were tired. I have been tired since 1987. I have never sent somebody else's daughter back through the mail. Ben's face twisted. For 1 second, anger almost became a smile because that was how his face had always protected him. This time, it failed. I thought she was trying to use you against me, he said. Mom stared at him. So you used us against her. He pulled the back door open. Mason moved as if to follow, but I caught his wrist. Let him go. I want an answer. You'll get the one he can live with tonight. Ben heard me. His shoulders stiffened, but he did not turn around. The door shut behind him. His truck started a moment later. Gravel snapped beneath the tires. We listened until the engine faded past the end of Old Quarry Road. Mom sat back down. The pot roast had gone gray at the edges. A skin had formed over the gravy. Ben had left my father's mug beside his plate. Mason took the beer he had barely touched and poured it into the sink. I have to work with him tomorrow, he said. You don't have to do anything tomorrow, Mom said. We have 3 calls scheduled. The garage isn't closing because a man lied at supper. Mason braced both hands on the counter. That's not what I meant. I know. What happens to the sale? My mother looked at the agreement beneath the open letter. A spot of gravy had soaked through the page where my envelope rested. Nothing happens tonight. She slid the contract away and held out her hand to me. I thought she wanted the letter I had opened. Instead, she pointed to the one addressed to her and Dad. May I? It's yours. No. Her fingertips touched the seal. It was yours first. I gave it to her. She tried to open it, but her thumb slipped beneath the flap and stopped. For nearly a minute, she sat with the envelope in both hands. I can't read this here, she said. You don't have to read it tonight. What if there's something for your father? There probably is. He can't read it. I know. She pressed the envelope to her chest, suddenly furious. He should have had it. No one disagreed. I gathered the other letters and returned them to the pouch. When I reached for the one in her hands, she held on. This one stays with me, she said. All right. And the rest? They're coming with me. Her grip tightened. Don't take them back to Virginia. I'm not leaving tomorrow. It was the first time I had made that decision. Mason looked over his shoulder. Mom lowered the envelope into her lap. How long are you staying? She asked. I don't know. Outside, the porch light threw a pale rectangle across the yard. Ben had left it on when he walked out. I left it burning. At the motor court, the red vacancy sign blinked outside my window with an electrical hum loud enough to qualify as wildlife. I put the document pouch on the room's small table, wedged a chair beneath the doorknob out of habit, and sat on the bed without taking off my boots. My phone showed 2 missed calls from Ben. No voicemail. A text arrived while I watched. "I didn't know you came to the house." I turned the phone face down. 30 seconds later, it vibrated again. I shouldn't have said what I said at dinner. He had several options for which part he meant. I didn't ask him to narrow it down. The room's hall light flickered through a gap beneath the door. I left the bathroom light on too, then lay awake listening to the ice machine cough every 11 minutes. At 5:30, I gave up and called my supervisor in Roanoke. Tasha Green answered on the 6th ring with, "Someone better be on fire." "No fire. Then you have misunderstood our relationship. I need a few extra days." Silence. Tasha believed pauses improved other people's honesty. "How many?" she asked. "I don't know yet." "You specifically don't know?" "Yes." "Should I notify the governor?" "I have leave." "You have enough leave to disappear for 6 months and come back during barbecue season." "I'm not disappearing." The word tightened something in my chest. Tasha heard it. She heard most things and pretended not to so people would keep talking around her. "Family?" she asked. "Yes." "Anybody dying?" "No." "Anybody trying to?" "Not so far." "Take the week. Call me Thursday." "I may be back before then. Then I'll hide your wrenches. You won't know where. I'll ask Miguel. He knows everything you pretend is classified." I smiled despite myself. "Thanks. Don't thank me at dawn. It encourages conversation." She hung up. I arrived at Hale Recovery before 7. The sky had the color of unpolished steel, and frost silvered the weeds along the fence. Mason's truck sat near the office. Ben's space was empty. Inside, somebody had started coffee. The radio was off. Mason stood at the workbench, making columns on a yellow legal pad. "You sleep?" he asked. "Some." Mom didn't. I took off my coat. "Did she call you?" "At 1:12, 3:40, 5:06. "What did she say?" "At 1:12, she asked if I remembered the cookies she mailed you. At 3:40, she asked where we kept Dad's old medical papers. At 5:06, she wanted to know whether Ben ever brought mail to my apartment." "Did he?" "Bills, a parts catalog, Christmas cards once." I looked at him. "I don't remember a letter from you. I believe you. That almost sounds worse. It wasn't meant to." He gestured toward the gray toolbox. The padlock was gone. A single brass key rested on top beside a foam cup of coffee. CH had been written on the cup in black marker. "Ben came by?" I asked. 6:15. "Dropped that off and took the white truck." "Where?" "County impound lot. He said he wanted to get an early start. He doesn't drink coffee from foam cups. That one's for you." I lifted it. 1 cream, no sugar." He remembered. Mason said, "Memory isn't character." Didn't say it was. The coffee was still warm. I drank it anyway. We spent the next hour opening drawers and arguing over ownership. Mason called every tool older than 10 years Dad's. I reminded him that I had purchased several of them before my first deployment. "You bought a $300 ratchet at 22? He asked. "I had few hobbies." "You had Ben." I repeat my point. Mason wrote my initials beside the ratchet. The inventory went slowly because objects did not respect categories. Dad's compression tester was in my chest. My breaker bar hung on the wall with shop equipment. A socket set Ben had bought during our marriage sat beneath a tray of Dad's drill bits. I had probably paid for half of it, legally speaking. I marked it as Ben's. Mason noticed. "That's generous, that's accurate. You got it for his birthday." I got him a jacket. He bought the sockets. "How do you remember that?" He complained the jacket made his shoulders look narrow. It did. It was his body doing that. Mason laughed and then covered it with a cough. He found Dad's tire gauge and went quiet. Our father had carried it in his shirt pocket for 30 years, even after the numbers wore away. He would test a tire, squint at the useless gauge, and announce the pressure based on some private agreement with the rubber. Mason turned it over in his palm. This doesn't belong to the shop. No. You want it? You keep it. His eyes lifted. Why? You used to check his pockets before Mom did laundry, because he left nails in them. You earned it. Mason set the gauge beside his wallet, careful not to look grateful. The side door opened at 8. Mom came in wearing yesterday's blue cardigan, buttoned correctly this time. She carried an aluminum pie plate covered with foil and the envelope addressed to her and Dad. Mason looked at the pie. I thought there was no dessert. There wasn't. So you baked before dawn? I needed to do something with my hands. She put the pie in the office, safely away from the invisible predators Mason called co-workers. Her eyes were swollen, but her hair had been sprayed into place. June Hale might lose faith in a person. She would not lose volume. Did you read it? I asked. She nodded. All of it? 4 times. The envelope had been opened neatly with Dad's old brass letter opener. Mom held it by the edges. You said his oatmeal cookies could be issued as body armor. They were dense. He was so proud of those. He mistook survival for praise. Mason leaned against the workbench. Did she mention me? Mom glanced at the letter. She said you still owed her $40. That debt died overseas. It did not, I said. He added a note to the inventory. Disputed liability. Mom smiled, but her eyes filled. She folded the letter along its original creases. You asked about your father's back, she said. You wanted me to tell you how the surgeon's appointment went. I remember. You said you were sorry you couldn't call on his birthday. I tried. I know that now. The last word bent in the middle. I closed the drawer in front of me. Mom. She raised one hand. Don't comfort me. I don't know what to do with that yet. It was honest enough to hurt less than an apology. Mason took the legal pad to the other side of the bay. He began counting power tools very loudly. Mom lowered her voice. There was a line about Ben. I waited. You wrote, he's angry, but angry is not the same as gone. Tell Dad not to call him unless I ask. I need to come home and have this fight myself. I looked toward the open bay. Frost melted on the gravel where the sun reached it. The empty space where Ben parked had turned dark with moisture. I don't remember writing that. I do now. She placed the letter on my toolbox. I'm sorry. The words were too small for what stood behind them, but small things could still be true. I know, I said. That isn't forgiveness. I know that too. She nodded, relieved I had not made it easy. The white tow truck pulled into the yard at 8:30. Ben parked beside the bay instead of inside and spent a full minute gathering paperwork from the cab. Mom watched through the window. I'm going back to the house, she said. You don't have to leave, Mason told her. I know. Ben came through the side door as she reached it. They stopped facing each other. Morning, he said. Mom held out the letter. Do you want to read it? He stared at the paper, but did not take it. It wasn't to me. No, it wasn't. His eyes moved to mine. Mom lowered the letter. I'm not signing anything today. I didn't expect you to. I don't know what I'm doing tomorrow either. That's fine. It isn't fine, Ben. No. She waited, perhaps for an explanation he could not manufacture quickly enough. Then she stepped around him and left. Ben remained beside the door, looking older than he had the day before. Mason tore a fresh page from the legal pad. White truck. Good? Lines holding? County pay? They promised. So, no. Ben removed his jacket. What are we doing? Inventory. His attention shifted to the brass key on my toolbox. You got it, he said. I did. I should have given you one before. You should have asked before locking it. Yes. The immediate agreement left nowhere for my anger to land. Mason handed him the legal pad. Bay 2. Anything with a red dot is a shop asset. Blue dot means personal. Yellow means Carrie and I have threatened litigation with our faces. Ben examined the page. Who gets Frank's dent puller? Yellow, parts washer, red, coffee maker, Hazardous waste. Ben looked at me. Can we talk? We are. Alone. Mason picked up the sticker sheets. I'll count filters with my eyes closed. He moved toward the stockroom. Ben waited until the door swung shut. I didn't know you sat on that porch. You said that. I mean it. All right. I thought you stayed at Campbell. Then I thought you went straight to your next assignment. I was out of the Army for 5 months after I came home. I didn't know that. You didn't ask. I didn't think I had the right. You had the confidence to answer for me when my family asked. He rubbed the heel of his hand over his forehead. I know how it looks. It looks like your handwriting. I returned the first letter because I wanted you to feel what it was like when you didn't call. There was no phone access. I didn't know that then. It was in the letter. His hand dropped. You could have opened one, I said. If I opened one, I'd have to answer. Yes. I didn't have anything left to say that wasn't ugly, so you sent the ugliness without words. He turned away and picked up a blue ownership sticker, rolling it between his fingers. The first months after you left, he said, I came to this garage because I thought every car pulling in might be you. I said nothing. Even after I told everyone you extended, part of me kept waiting. That doesn't make it better. I know. Do you? He placed the sticker on the workbench without using it. What did the rest of number 24 say? He asked. I felt the torn envelope upstairs in my mother's kitchen, lying across the contract he wanted me to sign. That letter came home, I said. You didn't. Then I walked into the stockroom and shut the door between us. Mason stood between 2 shelves, holding a box of oil filters against his chest. You know this door doesn't block sound, he said. I wasn't counting on it. It barely blocks light. Then it's decorative. He lowered the box onto a cart. Did you mean that? Which part? That he didn't come home? I don't know. You usually know what you mean. I usually get more sleep. Mason studied me, then began reading filter numbers aloud while I checked them against the parts list. We made it through 12 before he stopped. Was there a letter for me? Yes. More than one? Yes. How many? I don't remember. You remember what jacket you bought Ben 12 years ago. That jacket was evidence of a mistake. And the letters aren't? I looked at the tall shelves behind him. They were mail, Mason. I wasn't assembling a case. I wrote because I wanted to talk to people. He picked up another filter. Did I owe you $40 in all of them? Different amounts. The interest was brutal. He did not smile. Can I have mine? When we're done here. Why not now? Because they're at the motor court. Right? He seemed disappointed, as if I had refused rather than merely answered. The office bell rang before he could ask anything else. It was an old brass bell Dad had hung above the customer door after the electronic buzzer failed. He claimed bells had worked for centuries. Mom told him so, had tuberculosis. Mason went out first. I followed with the inventory sheet. Darlene Lockwood stood at the counter wearing a red quilted vest and a visor, even though the sun had barely cleared the neighboring roof. She had lived 2 houses down from my parents since before Mason was born. Her hair had gone from brown to white without changing shape. Carrie Hale, she said. Well, look who finally came back. Ben was at the parts washer. His shoulders went rigid. I put the inventory sheet on the counter. Morning, Mrs. Lockwood. She came around the counter and hugged me before I could decide whether we were people who hugged. Darlene smelled like rose lotion and the peppermint candies she kept loose in her purse. Your mother said you were coming, but I didn't believe it until I saw that truck. How long has it been? 9 years. Terrible how time runs off. It has good shoes. She held me at arm's length. You look exactly the same. I don't, but thank you. Oh, maybe a little tired around the eyes. Your mother showed me that picture of you in the uniform with all the other people. Where was that? Fort Campbell. Was that overseas? Kentucky. She nodded as if Kentucky qualified. Ben turned on the parts washer. Fluid began circulating with an industrial hum. Darlene lowered her voice, though not enough to become private. It's good you and Ben can be in the same place. He took things very hard after you didn't come back. Mason looked at Ben. I picked up a pen from the counter and clicked it once. I came back, I said. Darlene blinked. I mean, after the army, so do I. The parts washer shut off. Ben wiped his hands on a blue towel. Darlene, what can we do for you? Her eyes moved between us. She was not a malicious woman. Malice would have been easier. She had brought casseroles when Dad died and shoveled Mom's porch after the big storm. She also considered unanswered questions a health risk. My Buick is pulling to the right, she said slowly. I thought Mason might look at it. Pulling or drifting? Mason asked. What's the difference? About $100. She frowned. It's pulling. Leave the keys. I'll check it. Darlene placed them on the counter but did not release the key ring right away. You did come home? Yes. I never knew that. I'm learning a lot of people didn't. Ben folded the towel into quarters. Darlene looked at him. You said she stayed. I thought she did. No, Mason said. You said she did. Ben's eyes sharpened. Not now. When? Darlene finally let go of her keys. I can come back. 9:30, Mason told her. I don't need it right away. 9:30. She tucked her purse beneath one arm. Before leaving, she squeezed my hand. I'm glad you made it, she said. The bell rang when the door closed behind her. Mason waited until her car had disappeared down the road. How many people? Ben dropped the folded towel on the bench. How many people what? How many people did you tell Carrie never came home? I didn't take out an ad. Darlene knew. Darlene knows what everybody puts in their recycling. That's not an answer. Ben glanced toward the stockroom. June was upset. Frank was upset. People asked. And you told them she stayed overseas. I told them what I believed. You knew her unit came back. I didn't know she came with them. You told Mom she extended. Ben's jaw worked. I've already said I was wrong. No, you said you thought. I thought she chose another assignment. She talked about re-enlisting. Before or after you returned her letter with the bus time. I didn't read the letter. Convenient. Ben stepped closer. You want me to say I lied? Fine. I lied. I didn't know where she was, and I told people I did. Is that enough for you? Mason looked startled by the directness. It startled me too. Ben picked up Darlene's keys. I'll put the Buick on the lift. She asked me. You're busy. No, I'm not. Ben set the keys down hard enough to make them bounce. Then you do it. He walked into Bay 2. Mason watched him go. He's never talked to me like that. Yes, he has. When? When you weren't hearing it. I regretted the sentence as soon as I said it, not because it was false, because it turned me into someone competing over injuries. Mason took Darlene's car outside for a test drive. I returned to my toolbox and continued sorting alone. Ben worked 10 yards away. We did not speak. The hydraulic press squealed each time he lowered it. I found a set of flare nut wrenches Dad had borrowed from me and never returned, 2 unopened spark plugs for a truck we had sold when I was 26, and a faded receipt from a steakhouse near Fort Knox. Ben and I had eaten there after my promotion to sergeant. The steak had been terrible. He had stood on a chair to tell the dining room my wife can fix anything with wheels, then knocked over a glass of iced tea while climbing down. I folded the receipt and put it in my pocket. At 11, Mom crossed the yard carrying the pie and 4 forks. She must have decided the office was no longer secure. Lunch, she announced. It's apple pie, Mason said, coming in from the alignment rack. Apples are fruit. Pie is not lunch. Then don't eat it. He took 2 slices. We stood around the workbench because nobody wanted to sit in the office. Mom handed Ben a plate last. He accepted it carefully. Thank you, he said. She did not answer, but she gave him a fork. That was my mother. Punishment had limits when baked goods were involved. Ben ate standing apart near the bay door. Mason leaned beside me, chewing too quickly. Can we get my letter? He asked. You want to go through my truck? He stopped chewing. No, I'll get it. The green pouch was beneath the folded blanket. I carried the whole thing inside, set it on my toolbox, and searched by name. Mason's first letter was number 7. The envelope had a crease through one corner where it had been bent during return shipping. His name and apartment address were written on the front. He took it without speaking. Ben looked at the envelope, then at the floor. Mason slid his thumb beneath the flap. He didn't ask permission. The paper inside was covered front and back in blue ink. "You don't have to read it here," I said. "Yes, I do." He moved nearer the window. Mom set her plate down. Ben did the same. Mason read silently for a while. His mouth moved over a sentence. Then he laughed. "What?" Mom asked. "She says Dad would recover faster if the nurses stopped complimenting him. They did encourage him. He wore aftershave to physical therapy," I said. "He was maintaining standards." Mason continued reading. The humor left his face. "What is it?" I asked. He held the page closer. "Nothing." "Mason," he read aloud. "Check on Ben for me. Our last call got bad, and I think he's angrier than he knows what to do with. Don't take my side just because I'm your sister. Just make sure he isn't sitting alone telling himself things are worse than they are." The garage went silent except for the air compressor bleeding pressure in the corner. Mason lowered the page. Ben sat on the edge of the workbench. His untouched pie sagged on the paper plate. "I never got that," Mason said. "I know. What date?" "Top right. May 14th. "That was after Dad's surgery," Mom said. Mason looked at Ben. "Did you pick up my mail then?" "Sometimes." "You returned this?" Ben stared at the envelope. "It looks like I did." "You recognize your handwriting?" "Yes." "So you knew she wrote to me." "I knew she sent something. And you decided I shouldn't get it." "I thought she was trying to pull you into our marriage. She was asking me to check on you. She says that now." "No," Mason said. "She said it then." Ben's face closed. Mason folded the letter, but the creases did not line up. He tried again, increasingly frustrated. "I helped you move her things," he said. "I remember. You told me she'd requested transfer paperwork and wasn't coming back. I thought that was true." "You keep saying that like thoughts happened to you." Ben stood. "What do you want from me?" "I want to know if I would have treated my sister differently if I'd read this." Nobody answered. Mason put the letter in his shirt pocket. "I carried her boxes into Bay 4, he said. "I called her selfish before she'd been home 2 hours. His eyes met mine. "I'm sorry." I could see him waiting for me to reduce the weight. That was what we did in our family. Someone apologized, and the injured person rushed to make the apology painless. I didn't. "Thank you," I said. Mason nodded once. Ben moved toward the customer door. Mom blocked him without seeming to. She was still holding her pie plate. "Where are you going?" "For a drive." "No." His eyebrows lifted. "June, you've spent 9 years leaving rooms before anyone can finish asking you a question. I work here." "Then work." He looked past her at me. "Does everybody get a letter today?" "Only the people they were written to." "And what do I get?" I zipped the pouch closed. "You got yours back unopened." Ben absorbed that without blinking. Then he laughed once, low in his throat. "Right." "Don't," Mom said. "What?" "Make that face." "It's my face, June. It's the one you make when you want everyone to think you're too hurt to answer." His jaw shifted. "I have answered. You admitted you returned the letters after Carrie put them in front of you. What else am I supposed to do?" Mason touched the paper in his shirt pocket. "You could stop asking what the minimum is." Ben looked at him. The two of them had worked side by side for almost a decade. I had seen them disagree over equipment, customers, money, and the correct amount of garlic in chili. I had never seen Mason look at Ben as if he had become unfamiliar. Ben saw it too. "You think I didn't care about her?" he asked. "You think I didn't spend every day wondering if somebody would come to the door and tell me she was dead? I think you returned her mail." "I was angry. So was I. I didn't erase you." Ben looked at the green pouch. "No, she just left." I had no desire to defend myself again. The letters were on the toolbox. Mason's was in his pocket. Mom's was folded beneath her hand. The room had enough of my voice in it. I picked up the inventory sheet. The wheel puller belongs to the shop. Ben stared at me. Red sticker, I said. You're going back to inventory. Yes. We're talking. No, you're repeating. His face flushed. The office phone rang. Nobody moved to answer it. It rang again. On the third ring, Mason picked up. Hail recovery. He turned away, listened, and reached for a pen. Ben started toward Bay 2. Wait, Mom said. He stopped with his back to her. She held out her hand. My house key. The muscles beneath his green work shirt tightened. June. You collected our mail because you had a key. I keep thinking about that. I've had that key 11 years. I know. I check the furnace when you're away. I bring in packages. I fixed the upstairs toilet last month. I know all of that, too. He turned around. You think I'm going to steal something? No. I think I want to know who can open my door. For a moment, I thought he might refuse. Not because he needed the key, but because surrendering it would make the change in the room real. He unclipped the carabiner from his belt and worked a brass key free. A strip of yellow tape circled the top. Mom had labeled it House in tiny block letters. Ben placed it in her palm. If you need anything, he said, call me. I have your number. He went into Bay 2 and pulled the door shut hard enough to rattle the glass. Mom curled her fingers around the key. That was cruel, she said. No, I told her. It was a boundary. I can be both. Mason covered the receiver. County 9 again. Restaurant truck is leaning off the shoulder. Ellis never came for traffic control. Ben opened the bay door. I'll take it. Darlene's Buick is on the lift, Mason said. You started the alignment. I'll finish it later. She'll be back at 9:30. It's already 11:40. Mason checked the office clock. Apparently we've been busy destroying our family. Ben reached for the tow truck keys. I'll go, Mason said. Carrie can spot. Both men looked at me. I can spot, I said. Ben's mouth tightened. You don't work here. Neither does gravity, but it's going to be involved. The insurance, I'm not driving or operating the boom. I'm standing in a reflective vest and telling Mason when he's about to do something expensive. She has experience, Mason said. I'm aware. The way Ben said it carried an old resentment and an older pride. Neither belonged in the same sentence anymore. Mason tossed me a fluorescent vest. Come on. The red recovery truck smelled like vinyl, wet rope, and the pine tree air freshener Dad used to hang from the mirror. Mason drove with one elbow against the door. I sat beside him, fighting the sense that we were 20 again and headed out to rescue somebody who had ignored 3 warning lights. We made it almost to County 9 before he spoke. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with him. Work, probably. You know what I mean. Yes. He took Dad to chemo when Mom couldn't. I know. He slept in that office during the ice storm so calls wouldn't roll to voicemail. I know. He also returned your letters. Yes. Mason slapped the steering wheel with his palm. Stop agreeing with me. Which fact do you want me to argue? I want one of them not to be true. The restaurant truck appeared ahead, tilted into a muddy drainage ditch with its left rear wheel sunk to the axle. The driver, a middle-aged man in a paper restaurant cap, stood beside it smoking so aggressively the cigarette seemed responsible for the accident. Mason slowed and pulled onto the shoulder. I don't need you to hate Ben for me, I said. He put the truck in park. That would be easier. I'm not trying to make this easy. You never did, that's fair. The driver hurried over before we opened our doors. The ground just gave out. Mason looked at the 6 inches of tire track beyond the pavement. Ground sneaky. I moved over for a dump truck. Dump truck stop? No, then that was generous. The man flicked away his cigarette. Can you get me out? That's why we brought the large red necklace. I climbed down and walked the site while Mason positioned the recovery truck. The restaurant vehicle was loaded heavily on the rear. Mud had packed around the sunken tire, and the soft shoulder sloped toward a concrete culvert. Straight pull will walk the back end toward the ditch, I said. Mason nodded. Anchor off the maple? Too shallow. Guardrail? Maybe, if you'd like the county to own the garage. The driver hovered near my shoulder. You military? I looked down at the faded unit patch stitched to my work jacket. Used to be. I could tell. By the glamorous vest? By the way you looked at everything before you started. Mason passed me a pair of gloves. She also insults the ground into submission. We rigged a redirected pull using the recovery truck's rear stabilizers and a snatch block at the guardrail post without loading the rail itself. I explained the plan twice to the driver, who nodded through both explanations and then tried to stand inside the cable path. I moved him by the elbow. This line breaks. It won't care that you own a restaurant. I manage it. Then it'll feel even less guilty. Mason worked the controls. I signaled from where he could see me in the mirror. The cable tightened, singing faintly. Mud sucked at the restaurant truck's tire. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then the rear shifted 6 inches sideways. I gave Mason a flat palm. Stop. He stopped immediately. We adjusted the angle. No argument, no raised voices, no pretending the first plan had to succeed because it was ours. That had been Dad's rule before it was the Army's. The machine did not care about your pride. The second pull brought the wheel onto firmer ground. The driver cheered as if he had contributed. Mason climbed down, inspected the truck, and slapped mud from his gloves. You still have it. I stood in a vest. You saw the side load. So did you. After you pointed. I looked at the red truck. Mud spattered across its wheel wells. Dad would have tried the straight pull. Dad would have called it a controlled experiment. Then blamed the county. He'd have been right about the county. On the drive back, Mason was quieter. Near the roundabout, he said, I was angry at you before you deployed. I looked at him. Dad's back was getting worse. Mom was scared. The garage was slipping. You got orders and left. I didn't know Dad was that bad. He didn't want you to. And you did? I wanted you to notice anyway. The truck circled the forgotten judge. This time, Mason took the correct exit. I'm sorry, I said. He nodded. See? That's irritating. What? You didn't explain yourself. I can if it helps. No, it won't. We returned to find Darlene's Buick parked outside and Bay 2 empty. Ben's truck was gone. On my toolbox lay the completed alignment report, her paid invoice, and a folded shop towel. Ben had finished the job before leaving. Mom had crossed back to the house. Through the kitchen window, I could see her at the table with another envelope in front of her. Mason noticed too. Which one is that? I don't know. We cleaned the red truck and finished the inventory in Bay 1. Ben did not return. At 4, he texted Mason that he was taking the remainder of the day. At 4:10, he texted me. I deserved what you said. I still want to read the letter. I put my phone away. When the light began to fade, Mom came into the garage carrying the green document pouch. She had taken it from my toolbox while we were on County 9. I'm sorry, she said. I should have asked. Did you open more? 1. Which? She handed me an envelope addressed to her. The seal was broken. You asked me to leave the porch light on, she said. You said you knew you'd be coming in late and didn't want to wake us. My throat tightened. I didn't remember that part. I do. She placed the pouch in my hands. Come stay in the house, she said. I have a room at that terrible motel. It's clean. It smells like a swimming pool. You haven't been inside. I know what bleach smells like. I looked toward the kitchen. The porch light had already come on, though the sun had not fully set. Mom followed my eyes. I'm not asking you to call it home, she said. I'm asking you not to sleep on the other side of a locked door. An hour later, I carried my 2 duffel bags up the porch steps. My mother stood inside with the door open. She did not reach for my luggage. She knew better now than to mistake letting me in for carrying me home. My room had become a storage facility with a bed in it. Mom had covered my old dresser with folded fabric, 2 broken lamps, and a humidifier still sealed in its box. A stationary bicycle stood in the corner beneath my high school track photograph, its handlebars draped with blouses awaiting buttons. The wallpaper remained pale blue with tiny white flowers. I had hated it at 16 and felt oddly protective of it now. I can move the bicycle, Mom said. Does it work? It holds clothes. Then it's performing. She set clean towels on the bed. The green document pouch lay on top of my duffel. I didn't go through the rest, she said. I know. I wanted to. I know that too. She touched the zipper but didn't open it. Your father would have wanted to read his. The dead had terrible timing. They missed truths and then became reasons for the living to demand them. I'll find the ones addressed to both of you, I said. You can have those. What about the ones just for him? I need to look at them first. Her hand moved away. Of course. I waited for her to ask why. She didn't. At the door, she glanced at the lamp beside the bed. The switch sticks. You have to turn it twice. I can fix it, not tonight. She left the hall light on. I unpacked enough to make staying feel deliberate. Underwear in the top drawer, work shirts in the second, toiletries in the bathroom I had once shared with Mason, where a faded sticker still marked the mirror's lower corner. It had said, "Your face here," until steam and time erased everything but face. Number 24 waited inside the pouch. I sat against the headboard and unfolded the page I had torn open at dinner. The lines after my arrival time were not dramatic. I had written that my right boot squeaked, that a lieutenant from Idaho had lost $40 betting I couldn't identify an engine fault by sound, and that I never wanted to eat powdered eggs again. Halfway down, the handwriting changed. Smaller. Slower. I know our last call was bad. I know you think I keep choosing the Army because choosing it sounds better than admitting I don't know how to stop. I booked us an appointment with Dr. Bell for Monday at 11. If you don't want to go, I'll go alone. I'm not promising to resign just to make the fight end. I am promising I'll listen when we're in the same room and neither of us has 30 seconds left on a phone. Near the bottom, I had added, "Please be at the station. I don't want my first walk home to be by myself." I folded the page and put it back in the envelope. Ben texted once more. "I'll be at the garage at 7. I won't come in the house." I did not answer. At 6:58, the kitchen door shook beneath 2 firm knocks. Mom looked up from the toaster as if the door had violated an agreement. She wore a robe over her clothes and had one foam curler still trapped above her left ear. "You going to get that?" I asked. He knows how doors work. He gave back the key. "I'm aware." The knock came again, softer. Mom opened the door. Ben stood on the porch holding a paper bag from Dorsey's and a cardboard tray with 3 coffees. He had shaved. The green work shirt beneath his jacket was freshly pressed. "I brought biscuits," he said. "We have toast. I can see that." Mom looked at the bag. "What kind?" "Sausage, bacon, and 1 egg with no cheese. The last was mine." "You think breakfast is an apology?" she asked. "No, I think people have to eat while they're angry." She took the bag. Ben remained outside. Mom carried the food to the counter and began unpacking it. She did not invite him in. She also didn't close the door. Cold air moved through the kitchen. "You'll freeze the pipes," she said finally. Ben stepped inside and wiped his boots on the mat. His eyes found me at the table. Morning. Morning. Mom handed him a coffee. "This doesn't mean anything. It means you took the coffee. It was getting cold." He nodded. We ate standing around the counter. Ben had remembered everyone's order. Mom took the top half off her biscuit and set it aside. He put it in the empty bag before crumbs reached the floor. The movements between them were so practiced that each one now required a decision. Mason arrived late, saw Ben in the kitchen, and stopped. "Did I miss a vote?" "Eat," Mom said. He took the bacon biscuit and leaned against the sink. Ben put his coffee down. "I want to talk about the sale." "No," Mom said. "I'm not asking you to sign. Then there's nothing to discuss." "There is for me. I have financing approved through the end of the month. If we delay, I have to reapply." Mason chewed without looking at anyone. "I'm not making a decision because of a bank's calendar," Mom said. "I understand. I just need to know whether this is a delay or whether the offer is dead." "I don't know." Ben looked at me. "What do you want?" "Don't ask her," Mom said. "It affects her share. My property affects her share. My decision affects yours." He turned back to Mom. "I'm not trying to go around you. No. Apparently you save that for mail." The words landed, but he did not flinch away from them. "Fair," he said. Mom looked almost irritated that he accepted it. "I need time," she told him. "How much?" "I don't know." He picked up his coffee. "All right." Mason set down the remains of his biscuit. "That's it? What do you want me to say?" "I don't know. Something that isn't designed to end the conversation." Ben looked at the kitchen door. I watched him decide not to use it. "I returned the letters," he said. "I lied about knowing where Carrie was. I told June and Frank she extended when I didn't know that." Mom folded her arms. "Why?" "Because the alternative was telling you I had no idea. That would have been true, yes." "Was it shame?" He gave a tired smile. "Some." "What was the rest?" Ben looked at me, and I saw the answer before he said it. I wanted them on my side. Mason went still. Ben continued before anyone could interrupt. "I thought she would come back and explain everything in a way that made me look small. She was good at explaining. She had orders, reasons, schedules. I had feelings I couldn't make sound reasonable." "You were lonely," I said. "Yes." "You were scared?" "Yes." "You wanted me to leave the army?" "Yes, none of that sounds small. It did when you said it. I was trying to fit a marriage into calls that cut off, and I was trying to fit into your life at all." Mom pressed her fingertips against the counter. "So before she could come back, you told us she had chosen not to." Ben stared into his coffee. "Yes." The word was almost inaudible. Mason pushed away from the sink. "You knew she might return. I knew the unit was rotating back. I didn't know she was on that movement, but you knew she might." "Yes. And you let us believe she wouldn't." "Yes." The kitchen clock ticked. Ben's honesty had arrived too late to be noble and too fully to dismiss. He looked relieved in a way that made me angry. Confession gave the person speaking somewhere to put the weight. The rest of us still had to decide whether to pick it up. Mom took the untouched half of her biscuit from the paper bag and began tearing it into small pieces. "Did Frank know?" I asked. Ben looked at me. "Know what? That you lied?" "No." "Did he ever ask?" "All the time at first." "What did you tell him?" "That you were safe." "That wasn't the question." "I told him you'd chosen another posting." I had known that was what Dad believed. Hearing who had supplied the words made it new. After I left the army, I said, "He knew I was in Virginia." "Yes." "He had my number." "Yes." "He called on Christmas." "I know." "He talked about the Browns for 11 minutes. That sounds like Frank. He never asked why I didn't come home." Ben's face tightened. He thought asking would push you farther away. "Who told him that?" "I did." Mason whispered something I couldn't hear. Ben gripped the edge of the counter. "Your father made his own choices, Carrie." "Yes." "I didn't control him." "No. You gave him a map and acted surprised when he went where it pointed." He looked toward the porch window. The light still burned above it, pale against the morning. "Your dad asked me to keep working at the garage," he said, "after the divorce, after he knew you were out. I told him it might be better if I left." "Why didn't you?" "Because he said losing you didn't mean he wanted to lose me, too." There was no cruelty in the sentence. That made it crueler. Mason stepped between us without meaning to, placing his coffee on the table. "Dad wasn't choosing." "It felt like he was," I said. "He was sick." "I know." "He loved you." "I know that, too." Mom brushed biscuit crumbs into her palm. "Frank depended on whoever was standing closest. That was his great gift and his worst habit." Ben looked at her. "You were close," she said. "You helped him. Both things are true. But he trusted what you told him about Caroline." "I know." "Did you ever correct it?" "No." The toast popped from the toaster. All four of us jumped. Mason laughed first. It burst out of him, helpless and ugly. Mom began laughing too, one hand over her mouth. I leaned against the table as the sound caught me. Ben did not laugh. For a moment he watched us like someone outside a house, seeing warmth through a window. Then he smiled despite himself. It ended as quickly as it began. Mom wiped beneath her eyes. We should go to work. Ben nodded. At the garage, we moved through the morning with strained efficiency. Mason handled calls. I finished the personal property list. Ben repaired a wheel bearing on a delivery van and spoke only when the work required it. Near noon, he found me alone in Bay 4, separating Dad's tools from mine. I answered your questions, he said. You did. Will you answer one? If I can. Did you want to come home to me? Number 24 seemed to press against my ribs from the upstairs bedroom. Yes, I said. Ben closed his eyes. For how long? Until I reached the apartment and my key didn't work. He braced one hand against the workbench. I'm sorry. I believe you. He opened his eyes. Does that change anything? Yes. Hope moved across his face before he could stop it. I set a blue sticker on my breaker bar. It means I have to live with an apology now, I said. That's different from living without one. His hope settled into something quieter. He reached into his shirt pocket and placed a key on the workbench. Not Mom's house key, a small silver key with a square head. What's that? Storage unit off Miller Road. My body went still. I found 2 of your boxes in my attic after I moved, he said. I couldn't bring them here. I couldn't throw them out. You've had them 9 years? Yes. What's in them? I never opened them. He pushed the key toward me. This time at least he had left something of mine sealed. I looked at the key without touching it. How much have you paid? Ben frowned. For what? The unit. It doesn't matter. It matters if my belongings were the only reason you rented it. They weren't. What else is in there? My snow tires, camping stuff, a table saw with emotional problems. What's wrong with it? It turns on when it feels like it. That's not emotional. That's a switch. He almost smiled. There are 2 boxes with your name on them. That's all. I picked up the key. Why now? Because I should have given it to you before. You could say that about a lot of things. Yes. No camouflage. No counterattack. He had discovered agreement, and I was beginning to resent how effective it was. He wrote the gate code on the back of a Hale Recovery business card. Unit 41, he said. Blue door. I can find it. The bottom box is heavy. I can lift a box. I remember. That sounded too much like marriage. I put the key in my pocket and returned to the inventory. Ben stayed beside the workbench. What? I asked. I don't know how to do this. Do what? Be sorry in a way that doesn't make you angrier. You don't get to manage that part. I know. Then stop checking my face for results. He nodded and went back to Bay 2. At 4, I closed my toolbox and carried the personal property list into the office. Mason had covered the desk with invoices, toe slips, and the remains of Mom's pie. You missed a ratchet, he said. You ate the last slice. Possession law is different for food. I'm learning this family has a flexible relationship with ownership. His eyes dropped to the silver key in my hand. What's that? Ben found 2 more boxes of mine. Where? Storage unit. Mason leaned back in Dad's chair. What boxes? If I knew, I wouldn't need to open them. You want me to come? No. Want me to tell Ben not to? No. He turned a pen between his fingers. You're going with him. He knows the unit. He gave you the code. The bottom box is heavy. You carried a transmission through Bay 1 when you were 23. I dropped it. After you carried it, I folded the inventory and placed it in the sale folder. You're acting strange. I'm trying to figure out how to be your brother without doing it the way Ben taught me. The honesty stopped me. He didn't teach you everything, I said. No. Dad taught me the useful stuff. Ben taught me to assume you'd leave. I put one hand on the office door. I am going to Miller Road to pick up 2 boxes. I'm not surrendering to the enemy. You don't think of him as the enemy. No. That seems inconvenient. It is. Ben was waiting beside the white tow truck when I stepped outside. He had changed out of his work shirt and into a gray sweatshirt. For a second, he looked like the man who used to wash our cars on Sunday afternoons and leave dirty sponges in the sink. I'll meet you there, he said. You can ride with me? He looked surprised. I'm not making 2 vehicles burn gas for 2 boxes. You still monitor fuel economy? I maintain a municipal fleet. Fuel economy monitors me. He climbed into the passenger seat. I had forgotten how much space he took up in a truck. His knees came close to the dashboard until he moved the seat back. He checked the mirror automatically, then stopped himself from adjusting it. I wasn't going to touch anything, he said. You already touched the seat. I need kneecaps. They're optional. We drove with the radio off. Miller Road lay west of town beyond the concrete plant, the shortest route past our old apartment on Sycamore Street. I turned 1 block early. Ben noticed. I don't live there anymore, he said. I assumed the landlord had standards. I left 4 years ago. Where are you now? Duplex near the reservoir. I knew the one. 2 beige units with small decks overlooking more parking lot than water. Still at Roanoke City? He asked. Yes. You like it? I like knowing what breaks before somebody lies about it. He looked out the window. Machines are easier. No, they're just less offended by diagnosis. Bellwether Self-Storage occupied an old lumber yard behind a chain-link fence. The office was a converted garden shed with fake shutters. A woman with copper-red glasses slid open the service window when we pulled up. Ben Mercer, she called. Your door sticking again? Not today, Rita. She spotted me through the windshield. You finally hire somebody competent? My ex-wife. Rita looked delighted. Even better. We're getting boxes, I said. Unit 41. If you find the Christmas wreath that belongs to 38, Mrs. Barlow wants it back. How did it get in 41, Ben asked. Spirit of Christmas. The gate rolled open. Unit 41 had a blue door and a dent near the latch. Ben used his larger key to raise it. Dusty light spilled across 4 tires, a plastic canoe, 2 folding chairs, the moody table saw, and a stack of sealed tubs labeled camping. My boxes sat against the back wall. One was marked Carry, Closet. The other said bedroom/books. Ben's handwriting, black marker, firm lines. You packed these? I asked. Yes. You said you found them in your attic. I packed them at the apartment, brought them to the garage, then took these 2 when I moved out of my brother's. I didn't know they'd been mixed with my things until later. Why didn't you call me? I didn't have your number. My parents did. I wasn't asking them. You could have mailed a note. He looked at me. It was not funny, but my laugh came anyway. A short, sharp thing that bounced off the metal walls. Ben rubbed his mouth. I deserved that. You walked into it without assistance. I lifted the smaller box. The tape crackled but held. Ben reached for the larger one. Wait. He stopped. I took a utility knife from my pocket and cut through the tape on Carry, Closet. You carry a knife now? He asked. I carried one then. I thought that was mine. Apparently, objects enjoy mystery. The first thing inside was my green wool coat. Mom had bought it after my first promotion because she said Army outerwear was no excuse for looking institutional at Christmas. Beneath it lay 2 pairs of jeans, a belt, civilian shoes, and the red sweater I wore the night Ben proposed. I held it up. He looked away. You packed this. Yes. You knew what it was. Yes. Why keep it? I kept the box. That isn't an answer. He rested the larger box on a folding chair. Because when I packed the apartment, I wanted everything gone before I changed my mind. Then you stored it for 9 years. I changed my mind about throwing it away. The next layer held framed photographs wrapped in bath towels. Dad laughing beside the red tow truck. Mason asleep at the kitchen table with a socket wrench still in his hand. Ben and me at Fort Knox, both sunburned, his arm around my waist. Our wedding photograph was at the bottom. The glass had cracked from one corner to the center, splitting us cleanly apart without damaging either face. I didn't break that, Ben said. I didn't ask. I noticed it when I packed it. Did you enjoy the symbolism? No, I believed him. The second box held paperbacks, my civilian mechanic certifications, a desk lamp, 2 coffee mugs, and the appointment card for Dr. Bell. I sat back on my heels. Ben saw the card in my hand. What is that? The counselor. He took half a step forward. You really booked it? I wrote that I did. I didn't read the letter. No. What date? The Monday after I came home. He stared at the printed time. 11. Yes. Did you go? No. Why not? I was driving to Virginia. You went that fast? I had a friend near Richmond who offered a couch. Roanoke had a fleet opening. I applied from a truck stop. He leaned against the unit wall. You built your whole life in a weekend. No, I stopped trying to build it here in a weekend. The life took longer. The corrugated metal popped as the afternoon temperature dropped. Ben rubbed his thumb over a paint stain on the folding chair. When I returned the first letter, I expected you to send another. I did. I know. Then I expected you to call and demand an explanation. I tried. I know that now. You knew then. You stopped answering. I listened to the voicemail once. I went still. Which voicemail? The one where you said the line was down and you were writing. You said not to panic. I said not to assume the worst. Same idea. No, panic is a feeling. Assuming is a decision. He nodded. I decided. The words seemed to cost him. I returned the next letter because I was still angry. Then your parents' letters came, and I thought if I gave them those, they'd call me and tell me to forgive you. Frank already thought I was selfish for asking you to leave the army. He thought you were scared. I was tired of everybody translating me into something nicer. So you became worse on purpose? I wanted one person to tell me I was right. Did they? Your mother did. The answer landed without blame in it, which made it harder. She said marriage had to come first, he continued. Your dad said you'd cool off. Mason said you always left when things got difficult. I deployed. I know the difference now. You knew it then. Yes. I closed the box. Ben looked at the wedding photograph still lying on top. Every time Frank called me son, he said, part of me felt like I'd won. I waited. That's ugly. Yes, I helped him because I loved him. I'm not lying about that. I know. But I liked being the one who stayed. I liked that nobody could compare me to you if you weren't there. You made sure I wasn't. After you came back, yes. It was the first time he had said it without building shelter around the words. I stood. Why tell me now? Because you asked me to stop checking your face for results. That doesn't answer the question. He lifted the cracked wedding photograph. Because I'm tired of living inside a story where I'm the good one. I took the frame from him and placed it in the box. You weren't the only one keeping that story alive, I said. His forehead creased. I could have come back after I got settled. I could have made Mason listen. I could have stood in Mom's kitchen with the letters until she opened one. You shouldn't have had to. No, but I could have. Why didn't you? Because leaving was the one thing everyone already believed I would do. And proving us wrong meant staying with people who'd chosen me. Yes. He swallowed. I counted on you not staying. I know. We loaded the boxes into my truck. When we reached the house, Mom and Mason were at the kitchen table with the sale agreement between them. Mom had crossed out the proposed closing date. Mason had written figures on a grocery store receipt. Ben stopped at the porch. You coming in? Mom asked from the open door. He looked at her, surprised. We need to discuss the garage, she said. All four of us. Ben glanced at me. Don't, I said. What? Check my face. He climbed the steps. Mason carried one of my boxes inside and set it beside the kitchen wall. Mom saw my name in Ben's handwriting and touched the cardboard. What's in there? Things I left. Her hand remained on the box. Things that were kept from you? No, I said. Not this time. Ben stood just inside the door, waiting for someone to tell him where he belonged. Mom pointed to the chair he had occupied at supper. Sit, she said. He did. She folded the sale agreement closed. I'm not selling the garage on the current terms, she said. Mason's head dropped. Ben's face did not change. Is the sale dead? He asked. I don't know yet. You said we were discussing it. We are. You're going to listen while we decide what trust is worth. Ben put both hands flat on the table. For the first time since I came back, he had no key, no contract, and no version of me he could speak for. He stayed in the chair anyway. Mom opened the agreement again and turned it toward Ben. "I asked Mason what he can afford without your bank loan," she said. Ben glanced at the figures on the grocery receipt. "He can't afford it. Not all at once. The loan pays you at closing. I know how loans work. It also puts operating cash in the business. Mason's numbers don't." Mason rubbed the back of his neck. "That's the part we're discussing." Ben studied the receipt. "You're talking about an installment sale." "We're talking about Mason paying me over time," Mom said. "The attorney can call it whatever makes him feel useful." "How much time?" "I don't know yet. You keep saying that because 48 hours ago I thought I knew who I was selling to." Ben leaned back. "I'm still the same mechanic I was 48 hours ago." "No," Mom said. "You're the same man. That's the problem." He looked as if she had slapped him. Mason pulled the receipt closer. "If Mom stretches the payments and Carrie agrees to take her part later, I can make the monthly number." All three of them looked at me. "I can wait," I said. Ben's mouth tightened. "Of course you can. What does that mean? You have a city job, a pension, your own life. You can afford to be generous with something you never wanted." "I'm not being generous. I'm trying not to force Mom into a decision because a bank gave you a deadline. You're forcing a different decision." "No. I'm agreeing to delayed payments if she sells to Mason, which removes me." Mason said, "Not necessarily." Ben turned to him. "Whose name is on the business?" "Hale Recovery." "You know what I mean?" "Yes." "Who does the bank loan depend on?" "You." "Who put the proposal together? Who negotiated the fleet contracts? Who spent 6 months getting the environmental inspection cleared?" "You did. And now I'm out because of letters from 9 years ago." Mom placed both hands on the table. "You are out of the purchase because I don't trust you. I have never cheated this business. You made yourself part of this family by telling us Caroline had abandoned it. I was already part of the family. You were her husband. I was your son-in-law. The son-in-law part depended on the husband part, Ben." He looked toward the boxes by the wall. My name in his handwriting faced the table. "I stayed after the marriage ended," he said. "Yes. Frank asked me to." "Yes. I helped build what Mason is buying." My brother's face shifted. He did not like the word helped, but he could not deny it. I said, "Your work was real." Ben looked at me sharply. "You kept the trucks running. You took Dad to appointments. You worked storms and weekends. Nobody should pretend you didn't. Thank you. It doesn't entitle you to the garage. I'm not claiming it does." I made an offer. An offer Mom accepted because she trusted you like family. And I am family. "No," Mom said. "You were treated like family." The distinction settled heavily. Ben stood and walked to the sink. He did not leave. He ran water over his hands, although they weren't dirty, then dried them on the towel hanging from the oven handle. "What do you want me to do?" he asked. Mom shook her head. "Stop asking that as if there's one correct task and then everything resets. I'm trying to understand the rules. This is not one of your repair manuals. I know that." "Do you?" He folded the damp towel, matching the edges. Mason tapped the grocery receipt. "I still need you at the garage." Ben turned around. "I can do the repair load," Mason continued. "I can't do repairs, dispatch, roadside, billing, and the county accounts. Not alone. You want me to work for you. You already work with me. That's not the same. No, it wouldn't be." Ben looked at Mom. "What exactly are you offering?" "I'm not offering anything." "Mason is." Mason swallowed. "Same salary. We can work out a performance bonus if cash flow supports it. No ownership." Ben laughed. It wasn't his disguised anger this time. It was genuine disbelief. "You want me to go from buying the place to being your employee? You're already on payroll. I manage half the operation. Then keep managing it." "While you own it?" "Yes. And Carrie gets paid out over time for being Frank's daughter." I felt Mason brace for me to answer. I didn't. Mom did. Caroline gets paid because Frank and I decided our property would be divided between our children. You knew that before you made the offer. I also knew Mason couldn't buy without me. Neither could you buy without the bank, she said. Everyone is leaning on somebody. Ben looked at Mason. Is this what you want? What I wanted was the original sale without finding out you lied to me for 9 years. I didn't lie to you every day. You didn't correct it any day. I showed up every day, so did I. And you think you can run it alone? Mason's shoulders rose. I don't know. That should frighten all of you. It does. Ben stared at him, thrown again by an answer that did not pretend. Mason stood. I'm asking you to stay. Under you. Beside me, if you can live without your name on the deed. The business was supposed to be mine, too. There was a proposal, Mom said. There wasn't a promise, Frank promised. The room tightened. Mom's voice went very quiet. When? Ben looked at the table. When did my husband promise you my property? He said we'd find a way to keep the garage with the two of us. To keep you working with Mason. He wanted me to have a stake. Frank wanted 6 impossible things before breakfast. He also wanted me to turn the backyard into a buffalo ranch. Mason looked down to hide a smile. Ben didn't. You know what he meant, Ben said. I know Frank never signed anything. I know he left his decisions to me because he trusted me to make them after he was gone. He trusted me too. Yes, based on what you told him. Ben's face hardened. So one lie outweighs 9 years. No, I said. It explains them. He turned toward me. Not every hour, I continued. Not every good thing you did. But it explains how you got to stand in rooms where my name had already been settled before I entered. I earned my place. You worked for it. You also cleared mine out first. That's not fair. No, it isn't. He pressed his lips together. I could have stopped. Instead, I said, You wanted my family on your side before I came back. You got them. Every tow call, every hospital ride, every Sunday dinner happened after you made sure they believed staying was a choice I refused. I did stay, and I came home. The porch light cast a yellow reflection across the window, putting the room inside a second, darker room. Mason pulled out the chair beside him. Sit down. Ben remained standing. Think about the offer, Mason said. Don't answer tonight. I don't need to think. You do. No. Ben reached for his jacket. You want me to clock in tomorrow and pretend I didn't spend 9 years building towards something. I'm not asking you to pretend. You're asking me to accept being useful without belonging. The sentence silenced all of us. There it was. The part beneath ownership, bank terms, and shop keys. Ben had made himself indispensable because useful was the safest way he knew to be loved. Now every fact we uncovered threatened to turn his usefulness back into labor. Mom's expression softened, but she did not reverse herself. You belonged before the garage, she said. You were loved before you fixed anything, not by her. I met his eyes. Yes, by me. Until when? I don't know. You knew in that storage unit. You said until the apartment key didn't work. That was when I stopped trying. That isn't what I asked. I stood. I loved you while I was writing the letters. I loved you when the first one came back. I loved you less by the 5th. By the time I sat on that porch, love was the thing making it hurt. Is that enough detail? His anger disappeared. No, he said, but it's honest. Yes. He put on his jacket. Mason moved around the table. Take the night. Come in tomorrow. We'll do the scheduled calls and talk after. Ben looked at him for a long moment. I'm not working for you. You've worked with me this whole time. That's over. You don't mean that. I do. Mom rose. If you leave the garage, that's your decision. You already decided. I decided not to sell it to you. Same thing. No, she said, but I understand why you need it to be. He took the work keys from his pocket. The ring held the office key, bay key, fuel cabinet key, and the square electronic fob for the gate. He set them beside the sale agreement. Mason stared at the ring. You're scheduled for the McNeil transmission tomorrow. You know the job. I know you diagnosed it. Solenoid pack. Parts are in Bay 3. You ordered them. Yes, you can't walk out in the middle. I can't stay where every hour I work is proof against me. Mason picked up the keys. That doesn't even make sense. It does to him, I said. Ben looked at me. Don't explain me. Then stop using my exit. He flinched. I walked him to the porch. Nobody asked me to. Maybe I needed to make sure the door did not become the entire conversation again. Outside, the evening had turned cold enough for our breath to show. You think I'm running, he said. I think you're leaving before they can find out whether they'll miss you enough to call. His eyes went toward the garage. They will. I know. Mason can't handle the winter accounts alone. He asked you to stay. Not the same way. No. He put one foot on the first step, then stopped. I'm not asking for the letter again, he said. Good, but I'm glad you wanted me at the station. I folded my arms against the cold. You don't get to turn that into comfort. I know. He walked to his truck. The porch light followed him across the yard but ended before he reached the road. Ben got in without looking back. Inside, Mason was still holding the garage keys. We have 6 calls tomorrow, he said. Mom began gathering the cold coffee cups. I'll help, I told him. For how long? It was not accusation this time. It was arithmetic. As long as I can this week. After that, we make a plan that doesn't depend on one person never leaving. Mason looked toward the dark garage. He thinks we'll call. Will you? I want to. Then decide whether you want Ben or whether you want relief. He closed his fist around the keys. Mom sat at the table and drew the agreement toward her. With my father's old brass letter opener, she made one slow line through Ben's name. Nobody celebrated. At 6:15 the next morning, Mason wrote 6 addresses on the office whiteboard and stared at them as if they had insulted him personally. 1 mechanic cannot be in 6 places, he said. Correct. 2 mechanics cannot be in 6 places. Also correct. You're being supportive in a very technical way. I took the marker from him. 3 calls were roadside. 2 were shop appointments. 1 was a customer who had written urgent in the online form because her passenger window would not close all the way. I drew 3 columns: safety, immobile, inconvenient. Mason pointed at the last one. People don't like being called inconvenient. The problem is inconvenient. The people are customers. Try telling them that. I plan to. Mom came through the office door carrying a thermos and wearing Dad's old dispatch headset around her neck. Mason stared. What are you doing? Answering phones. You haven't dispatched since Dad got sick. I can still recognize an address. The software changed. Then show me. We can handle it. The phone rang. Mom put on the headset. Hail recovery. Are you someplace safe? Her voice changed when she answered a business line. Clear, warm, and unimpressed by panic. She listened, wrote on a pad, and pointed to the safety column. Disabled sedan on Route 14, she said. Right lane, no shoulder. State Patrol is on the way. Mason grabbed the red truck keys. I'll take it, he said. You have the McNeil transmission. Carrie can start teardown. He looked at me as soon as the words were out. Can you? Yes. Legally? Your mother still owns part of my hands. Mom covered the headset microphone. All of you came with the building. Mason left for Route 14. I called the woman with the passenger window. She did not appreciate being categorized, but she accepted an afternoon appointment after I explained that exposure to cool air was less urgent than exposure to traffic. By 8, the office smelled like coffee, transmission fluid, and Mom's lavender hand cream. I had the McNeil truck on the lift and the pan off. Ben's diagnosis was correct. The solenoid pack needed replacement. The parts sat on a labeled cart in Bay 3 with installation notes clipped beneath them. He had even written the torque sequence on a piece of cardboard. He always did that, Mom said from behind me. I looked over my shoulder. Did what? Made leaving difficult. She carried a stack of invoices into the office. At 10, Mason returned with the disabled sedan. Before he had finished unloading it, a plumbing van arrived with a seized front brake. The van's owner, a tall woman named Gloria, stepped into the garage and asked where Ben was. "Not here," Mason said. "When will he be back?" "I don't know. He always handles my vehicles. I've handled 3 of them." Ben explains things. "So do I. You make it sound like my fault." Mason closed his eyes. "I came around the workbench. Your caliper locked. It's not your fault. We'll inspect the hose and rotor before replacing anything. Mason will call with a number." Gloria looked at me. "Who are you?" "Carrie Hale." Her expression changed. "Frank's daughter?" "Yes. I thought you lived in Virginia." "I do. But you're here." "That keeps happening." She smiled uncertainly and left her keys. Mason watched her go. Ben would have sold her pads and rotors in 6 minutes. "Do you need him to?" "No." "Then call her after inspection." He picked up the keys. "You're bossy. You're welcome." At noon, he stood in the office with his phone open to Ben's number. I walked past without looking at the screen. "You can call him," I said. "I know. But call because you want him here on the terms you offered. Don't call because the day is bad. The day is very bad. The day is busy. The Route 14 driver threw up in the red truck. That part is bad." He put the phone away? We finished the McNeil transmission at 4:20. The window customer arrived at 4:30 and left at 5 with tape across the glass and an appointment for Monday. She said this was unacceptable, then thanked Mom twice before leaving. At 6, Mason locked the office and leaned against the door. "We didn't make any money today. You billed 7 jobs. We moved 3 appointments and paid for a tow truck seat to be professionally cleaned. You kept 6 people from becoming larger problems. That sounds like Army logic. It's maintenance logic. Same haircut." Mom crossed the yard toward the house with the green document pouch tucked beneath one arm. Mason watched her. "One a night?" That's what she decided. "Which one tonight?" "I don't know." He wiped grease from his knuckles. "She asked me whether Dad talked about you when Ben wasn't around." "What did you say?" "The truth." I waited. He did. All the time. I looked at the empty bay. "He kept the newspaper clipping from your promotion in his desk," Mason continued. "He acted like he didn't know where it came from. I mailed it." "I know. He never said. He wasn't good at crossing distances he thought he'd helped create. He was excellent at engines, terrible with maps." I smiled. Mason held up his phone. Ben's name still waited on the screen. "I'm not calling tonight," he said. "Okay, I might tomorrow." "Okay, you're supposed to tell me what to do." "No, you want me to be responsible for whichever thing hurts less." "That obvious?" "Yes." He pocketed the phone. Ben did not come the next day. The garage survived Thursday with 1 missed parts delivery and a customer who described a grinding noise by imitating it for 14 consecutive seconds. Friday brought cold rain, 3 dead batteries, and a county truck with a heater that blew only when turning left. Mom mastered the dispatch software by refusing to acknowledge its terminology. She called every queued job the list and every status update moving the little box. Mason stopped looking toward the entrance whenever an engine crossed the gravel. I called Tasha Thursday afternoon. "You sound tired," she said. "I'm working. You're on leave. I'm working somewhere else." That is a violation of the spiritual purpose of leave. "I'll be back Monday." "You sure?" "Yes." Another pause. "Are you leaving something unfinished?" she asked. "Most things are unfinished. Look at you, becoming philosophical in Ohio. I'm making a maintenance schedule." There she is. I arranged to return to Roanoke Sunday. I would handle some garage billing remotely for a few weeks while Mason hired another mechanic. Mom's attorney would rewrite the sale proposal around Mason's payments. None of it solved the winter staffing problem. It merely broke it into pieces small enough to carry. Ben came Saturday morning. He parked near the road instead of beside the garage. His truck bed held 2 empty tool chests and a coil of tie-down straps. Mason saw him through the office window. "You call him?" "No." "Mom?" "She's at the grocery." Ben entered without knocking. He wore jeans and a black jacket I did not recognize. Without the green work shirt, he looked less like part of the building. "I'm here for my tools," he said. Mason nodded. Bay too. They stood facing each other. "The offer to stay is still open," Mason said. Ben's gaze moved to the whiteboard where the jobs had been reorganized beneath my 3 headings. "Same terms?" "Same terms." "No." "All right. You're not going to negotiate?" "I did. Once. I asked you to work with me. You said you wouldn't work for me. That's not the same. It's the offer I have." Ben looked around the garage. The McNeil truck was gone. Gloria's plumbing van occupied the lift. The red tow truck had a new seat cover. "You manage?" he asked. "Barely. County called me." "I know. They asked if I was still handling winter dispatch." "What did you tell them?" "To call the garage." Mason nodded. "Thank you." Ben's mouth tightened. "Don't make it sound noble." I didn't. They spent 2 hours separating Ben's personal tools from the shop equipment. Nobody argued over sockets. Ben identified 3 specialty pullers he had purchased and 1 battery tester that belonged to the business despite his initials on it. Accuracy, even now. I worked on Gloria's van while they loaded his truck. At 11, Mason carried the last case outside. Ben closed the tailgate. "That everything?" Mason asked. "Except my mug." Mason looked confused. "Blue one. Says, fixer of things." "It's in the office." Mason retrieved it. The mug had a crack down one side, repaired with gray epoxy. Ben turned it in his hands. "Frank broke this." "I remember," Mason said. "You threw a ratchet at him. I threw it onto the bench. He was behind the bench. He shouldn't have been." For a moment, they smiled at the same memory. Then Ben placed the mug in the cab. Mason held out his hand. "If you change your mind, call." Ben looked at it before shaking. "I won't," he said. "I know." Mason went inside. Ben remained beside his truck. I took number 24 from my jacket pocket. He watched me approach, eyes fixed on the torn envelope. "I'm not giving this to you," I said. "All right. You can read it." His hand lifted, then stopped. "Why?" "Because you keep asking what I wanted. I'm tired of carrying the answer alone." I handed him the page. He unfolded it against the truck's hood. I could tell where he was by his face. The squeaking boot made his mouth move. The lieutenant's engine bet brought no smile. At Dr. Bell's appointment, he pressed his fingertips to the paper as if holding the line in place. Then he reached the last sentence. "Please be at the station. I don't want my first walk home to be by myself." Ben bowed his head. Traffic moved along Old Quarry Road behind him. A dump truck changed gears. Somewhere in the garage, Mason dropped a tool and swore. "I would have gone," Ben said. "You had to open it." "I know. You had 27 chances. I know." He read the page again. "I wanted you to come back afraid of losing me," he said. "I wanted you to apologize before I let you in. I did come back afraid. I wasn't there to see it. You made sure of that." His eyes closed. "I'm sorry you walked alone." The apology struck exactly where it should have. It did not repair anything. It found the break and named it. I took the letter from his hand. "Thank you," I said. He looked toward the house. "She took my name off? The sale agreement?" "Yes, she did. You all managed without me. Badly." A faint smile crossed his face. "But we managed," I said. The smile disappeared. He opened the truck door. I kept thinking Mason would call. He wanted to. Why didn't he? Because wanting relief isn't the same as wanting the arrangement back. Ben nodded. He climbed into the truck, but left the door open. "You're going back to Virginia," he said. "Sunday. So you still leave?" "Yes." He waited for me to defend the word. I didn't. "I leave after saying where I'm going," I said. "I answer my phone. I keep a key that works." He looked down at the ignition. "That's different," he said. "Yes." He closed the door. I stood in the gravel while he started the engine. Ben backed out slowly, careful around the hydrangeas, although he had more room than he needed. At the road, he stopped. For one unreasonable second, I thought he might turn around. Then he drove away. Mason came out and stood beside me. "We didn't call," he said. "No. He's going to hate us for a while." "Probably. You leaving Sunday?" "Yes." His jaw tightened, but he nodded. "What happens after?" he asked. I looked at the whiteboard through the office window, the jobs divided into problems instead of heroes. We keep telling the truth about who's coming back. Sunday came with freezing rain and one of Mom's lists taped to the refrigerator. Under eggs, detergent, and furnace filters, she had written, "Call Carrie Tuesday, not about garage." I added, "Wednesday, also acceptable." She found it while I was carrying my duffels downstairs. "You corrected my list. I expanded your options. I put Tuesday because you're off by 6. I'm not always home by 6. You work for the city. The city closes. Garbage trucks lack respect for business hours." She removed the list and folded it into her cardigan pocket. On the kitchen table, the green document pouch sat beside Dad's brass letter opener. Mom had read 4 letters. Mason had taken 2 addressed to him. The rest were still sealed. "I want you to keep these," I said. Mom shook her head. "They're yours. Some are addressed to you. They came back to you. Mail can try twice." She touched the pouch. "What if I don't like the person I was when you wrote them?" "You probably won't." That was quick. "You want me to lie before breakfast?" "No." "Then read one when you're ready. Stop when you're not." She looked toward the window. The garage doors were closed. Mason had promised not to work before noon, a promise neither of us believed. "Are you coming back next weekend?" she asked. "I don't know." Her face tightened. "I'll call Tuesday," I added. "Possibly Wednesday, depending on the list. That isn't the same." "No." I zipped my coat. "I'm not going to promise dates because you're scared. I did that before." She nodded slowly. "All right, I'll tell you when I know." All right. The agreement cost both of us something. That made it useful. Mason arrived while I was loading the truck. He carried Dad's tire gauge in his shirt pocket, where the top protruded like a silver pen. "You taking the socket set?" he asked. "Which one?" "See, this is why families need lawyers. The black impact set stays with the shop. The chrome set is in my truck. That was Dad's. It was mine." He touched it. He touched the refrigerator, too. "Mom, she's taken the refrigerator." Mom stood in the doorway holding the green pouch. "Take him with you." Mason helped secure the 2 boxes from Ben's storage unit behind the passenger seat. The cracked wedding photograph lay wrapped in the red sweater. I had considered leaving it, then decided objects did not deserve punishment for symbolism. My brother checked the tie-down straps twice. "You don't trust my knots?" I asked. "I don't trust Virginia." "That's not where knots come from. Exactly what Virginia wants us to think." When he closed the tailgate, he left one hand on it. "We're interviewing a mechanic Tuesday," he said. "Retired guy from the county fleet. Can he work roadside?" "Says he can." Saying and doing enjoy a distant relationship. I learned that this week. You'll be fine. "No, I won't." I waited. He looked embarrassed. "I'll be tired and irritating and I'll make mistakes. But the garage will probably remain standing." "That sounds more accurate. You could say something encouraging." "Label the fuel receipts before you lose them." He hugged me before I finished. I held on. Over his shoulder, I saw Mom switch on the porch light. Morning had already filled the yard, but she left it burning anyway. The drive to Roanoke took 6 hours in the rain. I called when I reached my apartment before Mom could decide a mountain had swallowed me. She answered on the first ring. "You made it. I said I'd call. I know." The surprise in her voice hurt more than doubt. Tasha was waiting beside my workbench Monday morning with a clipboard and the expression of someone conducting an unauthorized inspection. "You look terrible," she said. "Thank you. You're welcome. Did your family survive?" "Define survive." "Still exchanging oxygen for carbon dioxide?" "Mostly." She handed me the clipboard. "Compactor truck 3 is making a noise." "What kind?" "An expensive one." I set down my coffee. "Did Miguel check the hydraulic pump?" "He said you would ask that." He could have answered it. He said making you feel needed was part of the return to work process. Roanoke felt unchanged in a way Bellwether never did. My tools stayed where I put them. The vending machine still stole quarters. At lunch, Tasha complained about procurement. By Wednesday, I could go an entire hour without thinking about a red return to sender stamp. Then Mom called. I read number 12, she said. I sat on an overturned bucket beside a snowplow blade. Was it yours? Mine and your father's. You can say Dad. I know. She took a breath. You asked him if he remembered teaching you to rebuild the winch. He made me do it twice because he thought I'd memorized his mistakes. You wrote that you could hear him telling you not to force the gear. I still hear that. He would have liked knowing. He should have known. Yes. She did not ask me to soften it. The calls continued. Some were about letters. Some were deliberately not about the garage. Mom told me Darlene Lockwood had repainted her mailbox and that the color looked legally purple. I told her the city had purchased 3 trucks with filters accessible only to people whose elbows bent backward. Mason called about everything. The new mechanic says Dad's part system is incomprehensible. It is. He says we need software. He's right. I don't like him. You don't have to marry him. He labels his lunch. You accused me of stealing pie. That was active pie. The retired county mechanic lasted 9 days before deciding roadside work interfered with retirement. Mason hired a younger man from the next town for shop repairs and subcontracted the heaviest recovery calls until he could train another driver. It cost more. Customers waited longer. Nobody died. Ben did not return. Mason heard he was doing contract work for Ellis Towing and repairing equipment from his duplex garage. He reported this as if reading weather conditions. You gonna call him? I asked. No. You sound disappointed. I am. That's allowed. I hate when you say things like a brochure. I can swear if it helps. It might. Mom's attorney rewrote the sale agreement. The new version had Mason purchasing the business and property over several years, with part of the proceeds divided later rather than at closing. My personal tools were listed separately. Dad's remained with the garage except for the tire gauge, which Mason had apparently adopted as formal wear. I drove back to Bellwether to sign. The 4-chair kitchen table had 3 people at it this time. Nobody sat in Dad's chair until Mom moved there herself. Mason read every page, asking questions he would once have directed to Ben. Mom corrected the attorney's spelling of her middle name in 3 places. I initialed beside the delayed payment terms. You're sure? Mason asked. Yes. If business is slow, it could take longer. I read the same document. You have a way of signing things that looks threatening. It's efficient. Mom slid a plate of cookies between us. Dad's oatmeal recipe, judging from their structural integrity. Mason tapped one against the table. Is this part of the building? Eat it, Mom said. I need dental coverage. We signed without speeches. No one raised a glass. Mason carried the agreement to the garage safe and returned with grease on his cuff because even major family decisions had to pass through a room containing an uncooperative truck. That evening, Mom and I began repairing the porch railing. She had purchased primer, 2 brushes, and enough white paint for a small lighthouse. We removed the loose boards and found rot beneath one post. Your father said that was surface damage, she said. Dad considered anything above ground surface damage. We cut a replacement in the garage. Mason offered advice until I gave him a brush. While we worked, Mom said, I believed Ben because he stayed. The scraper paused in my hand. I know. I told myself that people who stay are the ones telling the truth. Sometimes they just have better access to the room. She brushed paint into a crack. You were hard to reach. Yes, that isn't the same as gone. No, I should have asked more questions. You should have opened the pouch. She looked down at the porch boards. I'm sorry. I know. Are you ever going to forgive me? The evening traffic moved along Old Quarry Road. A siren sounded far off and then faded. Maybe, I said. Her mouth tightened. Not because I want you to suffer, I continued, because I don't know what forgiveness means yet. I can talk to you. I can repair this railing. I can trust you with some things and not others. That sounds like rules. It sounds like where we are. She dipped her brush again. I suppose I was hoping for a ceremony. I don't perform on demand anymore. No. She painted beside me. My return trips became regular without becoming an obligation. Every other weekend at first, then whenever the garage needed a second set of hands, or Mom found a letter she could not open alone. I kept a duffel in my old room but refused to call it moving back. Then Tasha left a job listing on my workbench. The county road department outside Bellwether needed a heavy equipment mechanic. The salary was lower than Roanoke's. The fleet was older. The description used the phrase, "other duties" as assigned 3 times, which was either honesty or a threat. I carried the listing into Tasha's office. "What is this?" "Paper." "Why is it on my bench?" "Air movement." "You printed it." The printer participated. I sat across from her. "You want me to leave?" "No." "Then why?" "Because you've driven 1,100 miles in 6 weeks and started labeling your drawers. I labeled drawers. You labeled the empty ones." I looked at the posting again. If I apply, it doesn't mean I'm going. Correct. If I interview, it doesn't mean I'm accepting. Also correct. You're irritating. I'm a leader. The county fleet did not save me. It needed brakes, welding, and someone willing to explain that preventive maintenance was cheaper than replacing transmissions. I applied because the work was familiar and the location wasn't. They made an ordinary offer. I took 3 days to accept it. I gave Roanoke a month's notice, trained Miguel on the systems I had guarded too closely, and rented a small yellow house 10 minutes from Old Quarry Road. It had an uneven kitchen floor, a detached garage, and a porch light controlled by a switch that worked the first time. Mom tried to give me a key to her house on moving day. I closed her fingers around it. "Not yet," I said. She looked hurt, then nodded. "When?" I'll ask. 2 weeks later, I did. By early spring, Hale Recovery had stopped feeling like a patient in intensive care. Mason complained about cash flow, scheduling, customers, suppliers, weather, and the moral character of software. In other words, the business had become his. I helped when I chose. Some Saturdays I repaired equipment in Bay 1. Others I turned off my phone and stayed in the yellow house reading with the blinds open. Nobody called that abandonment. Ben's letter arrived in April. The envelope lay in my mailbox beneath a utility bill and a flyer for gutter cleaning. My new address was written in the same blue ink he had once used to write "refused." For several minutes I stood beside the road holding it. He had returned 27 chances to hear me. I could write "return" to sender across his name. I could leave the seal intact until the paper yellowed. Part of me wanted him to feel his own words come back untouched, but silence had already taken enough shape from my life. I opened it at my kitchen table. Ben's letter was 6 pages long. He did not ask me to forgive him or speak to him. He wrote that he had confused being needed with being chosen, and punishment with proof of love. He admitted that every returned envelope made the next lie easier and the truth more expensive. He said he had apologized to Mason and June separately. He was still at Ellis. He missed the garage. He missed Dad. He missed the version of himself everyone had believed. Near the end, he wrote that he sometimes drove past the old bus station and imagined arriving at 6:10 with my letter open on the passenger seat. I read the pages once. Then I folded them, returned them to the envelope, and placed them in the green document pouch with number 24. I did not answer. That evening, I walked to Mom's house. The repaired railing shone white beneath the porch light. She was in the kitchen arguing with Mason about soup. I climbed the steps and used my key. Mom looked up when I entered. "You're late," she said. I said after 6. "It's 6:12. Mason checked the clock. "Court-martial." I hung my jacket beside Dad's old coat. Ben wrote, "Mom went still." "Did you open it?" "Yes." "Are you going to answer?" "No." She studied my face, then returned to the stove. "Soup's getting cold." I crossed the kitchen and turned on the light above the table. Nobody had left it burning for me. I had a key now. I could do it myself.